before I send it
Oh,
to
Jeff,
make sure they haven't talked
let's
about
test the Skype. Just a minute. I'll do.
Oh yeah, hang on. Let me plug it in first. Uh-oh. I need the adapter. Dang it. Hang on.
I'm hanging. Morning, everybody, or whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. I guess it's afternoon where Captain Nick is.
Hi. Yeah, we're good. Come on up.
It's very
Oh,
early
look,
over
here's
here.
the-
I'm on the wrong side of the world to do
You
this.
can't see this one.
Are you in California?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Looks pretty out there.
Yeah, it's
right.
it's actually been a little cool.
All right. It's
Cool being a relative, right? Like we almost got down to freezing first night I was here.
It got cool. We just had some weather go through yesterday,
Right, here we go.
and it got really cold last night. It was in the 30s.
Yeah.
Okay, let me plug this in and plug it into my phone. Okay, now I'm ready for your call.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hey there. Off you go then. Go on, off you go. Right, sorted out the dogs.
Nope. Need to be over this
Ho, 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 and a bottle of rum. Woo! Ning, nong, ning. Nong, ning, nong.
Why is it coming through that speaker? Oh, hello. Oh, hang on. Let me mute.
It's a good cat. Which, okay. Good boy, Roger. Nice muff you've got there, Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah. Looks a bit old, though. A bit grey around the edges.
Well, that happens when you get older.
Apparently.
Oh, I got to mute myself. There.
Ah,
Mute myself
Derek's
and
birthday.
Derek's
It's the-
birthday, and he's catching
Derek,
recording.
the best thing you could think of to do on your birthday was to listen to the APG.
Now that's sad, Derek.
That's very sad.
Very sad.
You know?
But happy birthday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know what? Okay. This is going to be a mess because we all have latency and internet stuff, but we have to do it, Derek. Sorry. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Derek. Happy birthday to you.
Should have had the
I
dog.
told you.
going.
Actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
There you go. What do you want me?
Okay. I feel like my volume is higher than everybody
Yeah, it
else's.
does feel a little bit. You're hot. You're too hot.
I'm so hot. So I'm going to bring it down, bring it
Is
down.
it time to put recorders on?
Yeah, let's do that. Record.
So I am probably going to hang around until maybe the end of the news, depending on how long that takes.
Okay. And maybe a quick get caught up with you? And
Yeah,
then-
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, if we get there, probably no more than an hour and a half at the very top.
Well, just as whenever you need to go. We don't want to keep you from, making a living.
Well, I gotta make a living this afternoon, so I'm trying to run up to the C-47 and do a couple of things on it.
Okay.
That's
So
much
it's
more
not
important
as
than making a
critical.
living.
Nah.
Yeah, no, it's still critical though. I mean, you don't get out there all the time, so.
Okay.
My recorder is recording, but now we need some sound check, folks. There, Paul Verhagen in the Cincinnati area has a background in broadcasting. So maybe, Paul, you can let us know levels if they're good or bad.
Yeah, let's all talk a little bit.
Yeah,
What's Nick taking a picture of? I'm very curious.
his muff.
Oh, right. Okay. Must be, yeah.
Don't be posting that.
I'm sending a picture to my wife saying, "Hey, look, I'm doing the podcast. I'm doing the podcast. You don't have to worry about the kids."
Yeah, very true. I've just got to try and calm my rugger down now.
Because apparently, you're the one that's got all the background issues now. Apparently, the podcast is a 2-person job for us because she says, I've always got to watch the kids when you're doing the podcast. And I'm
Right.
like, you've always got to watch the kids all the time. What's that?
That's true. Really, nothing has changed there, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, she's not watching now.
No. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know.
She's an anti like talk radio person. It's amazing. It really is quite amazing that we get along.
Yeah.
Because I've listened to like, apparently. Because she's never been into like talk radio, anything. I've been listening to like sports talk radio since I was a kid. And my folks listen to news radio. So that's why I was so excited about podcasts. She couldn't listen to like a talk format to save her life, even if it's something she liked, let alone airplanes.
Right. Yeah, I got that all the time from Linda. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't get this at all. It's like, so are you still doing that podcast thing?
IL says we all sound good. So
Good.
and
Good.
agrees.
Excellent.
That's Ken that you're going to see this week.
Ken
again.
Hayes.
Jeff,
What's
did
that?
you want to say something to Ken?
Oh, Ken. Ken, you're there in the chat. Yeah, did you get my replies regarding lunch on Tuesday?
Logan says he doesn't get it either, but he listens anyway. All right, are we getting ready to go here so we can make the most of Nixie's time?
Yeah, let me do a sound check on the.
I was going to do a quick speed test because Jeff just froze on my computer for a second.
Uh-oh.
I don't know how to plug in to the wall here.
Oh, okay.
So I'm over our Wi-Fi.
Well, your video looks good quality, and
Yeah.
your
You
audio
sound
is
good, yeah.
uninterrupted. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the up is good, apparently.
Yeah, up
The
you.
down. Yeah,
The down is 206 and the up is like 230. That should be fine.
well, that's weird.
Oh, that's
more than
pretty
fine.
damn good.
Oh, my camera's broken.
Ooh, pardon me.
I think Ken is saying yes, lunch on Tuesday. I think that's what his message is.
Oh, here,
there.
let me go back. There are a lot of things going on here.
Yeah, I'll
Sorry.
post it there. It says lunch on Tuesday.
Yeah, lunch Tuesday. Lag is there's a YouTube has like a built-in about 25 second lag.
For the potty mouths like Captain Nick.
Yeah, so we can.
That's how they do it on network TV too.
It doesn't deter him, but try.
No, I know I can keep potty mouth going for much longer than 25 seconds.
I like how the level of trust between Captain Jeff and Liz is just zero because she told him that Ken Hayes said lunch on Tuesday, and then she was like, "Oh, let me put it up on the screen
Well, I know.
so you can verify it."
No, that wasn't it. I know he doesn't have that many screens, and he wasn't probably looking at the chat. Oh,
Yeah,
what's that?
Sensor beep.
that's
Just
a
bleep.
beeper for.
I'm just getting it ready, warmed up for Captain Nick.
I'm going to be a good boy. I'm not even drunk.
Ooh, this is going to be a new experience.
I know. The cold light of day.
Okay, so we got Captain Nick, we got Macho Man, Ontario. I think I have all the. Yeah.
Nick's camera looks like he's got a bar on one side. His picture's not center.
Oh, I know what that is.
Ah, he hasn't zoomed in.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Now your head's even bigger.
Hey, big Ed.
Well,
What's up to?
Nick does have a bar on one side. It's over on that side of the room.
The other side. Yeah, we've seen it.
We've seen it.
Oh my! Oh, that's scary. No.
How's that? Oh, I think there's someone at the door.
Okay.
Don't they know he's got a podcast to be involved
Yeah.
in?
How rude.
Is that your wife at the door interrupting the podcast?
Getting some more things.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am recording.
Yeah, I only have one screen, which is one little screen. compared
Yeah,
to
I
the
have.
two big screens.
I have one
This will be
screen here at home, but it's like a 27-inch maybe screen.
yeah.
So a nice big screen. So I love it when I'm doing this from home.
yeah.
Home base.
Home base.
APG.
But yeah, when I'm on the road, then I just have my laptop, and then I have my EFB as an extra.
We just got Paul's certificate of approval.
Oh,
there.
good. Thank you, Paul. Wow, that's a huge lag.
Oh, speaking of being on the road, I was going to send you guys a picture. I made a little kit, a travel kit for all of my stuff. It's a work in progress.
That sounds
Okay.
very organized. Jeff would never do that.
I have a kit and a kit bag. It's always changing. That's the problem.
There's no checklist or anything.
Okay, let me see here. Oh, nice. Ooh.
Nice
Okay.
beaver.
So I cut, I cut the bottom one on my laser, but then I ran out of time. That's
Oh,
why
wow.
that top one,
Nice
that's why that top
beaver.
one looks like garbage.
That's
That was like
nice.
hand hewn by beaver teeth.
Okay. Well,
And
that means
you-
we're gonna have to show that to everybody in our audience. Share screen.
Nick C is one talented guy.
He
The other two of you guys, not so much.
Unfortunately,
Oh, really?
Maybe you better start drinking, Nick.
I think I need to.
I
Yeah.
think
Did she just slam us,
Yeah, I did.
Nick?
Yeah.
Dang.
Dang.
We haven't even started yet, and you're already
Dang.
being rude. Dang. Okay,
I
here
usually
we go.
hold that for just when I'm talking to you.
Here we go. Look at that.
based on the recent events, I think they might be a little more. Either the bar is trending down, or they're just better than we think, because they can keep their airplanes straight and level, and away from other airplanes on the runway.
True.
Which,
That's true. That's true.
That's
That's
apparently harder than it might seem.
we thought
That
that
was
was
very-
basic, but
Very difficult.
That is a nice
Micah.
red box.
hi, Bruce.
Whose red box
Thank
is
you.
that?
That's Nick.
That's my little kit.
Nice
That's my
beaver.
Right.
my little travel kit.
Now, have you been asked to open that up for the security guys or anything?
I have not, but I have a larger, probably 2 or 3 times bigger than that Pelican case. So it's like the same kind of case, but it's just bigger. And they did open that up with all my tools and everything. I had to check that because it was so heavy, and they did
Right.
rifle through that.
That's very cool. Look at all that padding and everything. That's great.
Let's see. How do I do this? There we go. Very nice.
Yeah.
So what is that, a GoPro? Oh, it says GoPro on it. Yes. Now that I've zoomed in, I can
Laura's
see that.
here. We were just talking about
And
you,
he's
Laura.
even got a GoPro tripod.
Yeah,
What's this
that's
thing
like
up in the upper right-hand corner?
those are like
Lapel
wireless
mics?
mics. Yeah,
Yeah.
wireless lapel mic that I
Oh,
can plug
okay,
in my
like
phone.
labs.
So if
Okay.
I'm just doing,
Nice. Look at you getting all fancy.
Oh, a little gimbal and everything.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well
Yeah.
done.
Woohoo.
We were talking about your classic put down of the OB boys, Laura. That was just, we love that so much.
Yeah, we need more of that.
Yeah. We need more of that in our life. Okay, let's get this going.
Okay. Let me get over here.
I'm ready.
Me too.
I was the last one here, and I'm the first one ready.
Shut up. I think I like him better when he's drinking.
We love you.
Well, I might get a beer halfway through. It's going to be sort of beer o'clock after, by the time we get to Plain Tales.
Okay, and I think I'm ready. Okay, just one more sound check.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
Loud, loud, loud.
Okay, I'm glad I checked.
Yes, I'm glad you checked too.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
Still too loud?
A little
You know,
maybe.
pretty loud.
having dodgy hearing is an advantage sometimes.
Huh?
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
That's good.
You sure?
Yeah.
I can barely hear it now.
I know. All right. Okay, got that. Got that. We're
Going for a
recording.
quick swim.
Yeah.
What?
He's going swimming in his background
Oh, okay.
Why is he swimming through the air though?
because he's a pilot.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Liz.
Okay. Just want to make sure I have all these in the right
Configuration.
configuration, color. Why can't I see that? What's going on here? Come on.
Uh-oh, he's finding a problem.
No. It's just I'm trying to make the print dark for Camacho. There we go. Okay, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good job. My recording's already 12 minutes long.
Okay. Here we go.
Hit it!
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy episode 557.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 18th of February, 2023.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. It's your ride and he's flying by with the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a bus and a plane collide at LAX, injuring 5 people. Parents abandon their baby on a check-in counter in Tel Aviv after arriving at the airport without a ticket for the child. More news, your feedback, and today's plane tale, the Applegate Memorandum. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 557 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He is an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins, on 92.3 FM in New York City. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a pilot at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, Georgia, and joining us from his studio,
in Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Lovely to be back on the show. Looking forward to a really good one this week.
We are as well, and also joining us from... Hey, stop talking over there. Okay. Let's do a do-over. Sorry. We'll start with Captain Nick again. Okay. And joining us from his studio,
In Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Great to be back on the show. Really looking forward to it. And I'm home alone, so if you see me disappear, I'll be sorting out the dogs or answering the doorbell. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's just all part of the ambiance of the APG. Also joining us from his home studio in the air capital, No, that's not true. He is coming at us from SLO, which is San Luis Obispo, California. Low and slow pilot, newly certified A&P mechanic, old airplane enthusiast, and engineer in the aerospace and defense industry. It's Macho Man Nick Camacho.
Hey, Jeff. Yep, unlike Captain Nick, I'm not home at all. So looking forward to getting through as much as we can while I have some time here. Excellent.
Great to have you with us for a bit. And also from her studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, retired financier and aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer. It's Liz Piper.
Good morning, everybody, from a sunny but chilly Toronto.
Good morning. And let's
have a good show, guys.
All right, Liz. We'll see you or hear you.
Stand by for news.
All right, let's start off with this from the Los Angeles International Airport. A collision. This is actually from foxnews.com. There was a collision between a passenger bus and a commercial plane on the LAX tarmac late Friday night last week. Yeah, or a couple of weeks ago. Okay. The Los Angeles Fire Department responded to a call at LAX around 10 p.m. where they found at least 5 people injured as a result of the crash. 4 were then transported to the area hospital, according to Fox 11 Los Angeles. Authorities said the crash happened at a slow rate of speed as the jet, an empty American Airlines A321, was being towed away from the gate. A jet being towed tonight, this is a quote from LAX operations. A jet being towed tonight from a gate to a parking area made contact with a shuttle bus. I guess it's maybe an employee shuttle bus, resulting in injuries to about 5 people. We thank our partners at LAFD, Los Angeles Fire Department, for quickly responding and treating passengers from the bus. Other LAX operations remain normal. The 5 people hurt included the tug driver, who's listed in moderate condition, the bus driver, and 2 passengers who are believed to be in fair condition, and an LAX worker, according to the report. It's a dangerous place.
That was a collision between a bus and a bus. Is that what you're telling me, Jeff?
Yeah. However, yeah, okay, I get you now. It was, it's like, I'm sorry, I have to say, I just finished training, which I'll talk about, in the Getting to Know Us segment, but my brain right now is like so fried. I'm not in my podcast mode at all, and I really am trying hard to get back in the podcasting gear, but I'm a little frazzled, sorry. So, I don't know. They said at a slow rate. I don't know if that's
well, it looked like it gave it a fair whack.
It did.
The damage it's done to that poor damned Airbus.
I know. Look at that.
Yeah, I know. It's completely stoved in the external access door there to the equipment bay and ripped open the fuselage, big dent in the radar. That's actually going to be pretty expensive.
That photo that we're looking at right now of the nose below the radome area, it almost makes it look like, sometimes they do the paint jobs on the nose art on airplanes, and it looked like a mouth,
oh, absolutely, yeah. Now, I wonder if that bus driver is going to have a little A321 silhouette on the side of his bus from now on.
He might.
The first airplane I killed, yeah.
So I wonder if the shuttle bus hit the tug/airplane or vice versa, or was it an equal effort?
Good question. I have a good feeling that the towed aircraft under tow has right of way here.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you written, Nick?
Well, I was just going to say, it looks like the bus hit the airplane at the very front, like head to head.
Yeah.
I'd have thought
how
so.
did the tow guy not get more injured? I mean, isn't that right where the tug is?
Unless he was going around a corner.
Yeah.
So he'd be leading the aircraft around the corner and the bus.
Yeah.
I do wonder about these things because we see it often enough aircraft to aircraft, and sometimes you can understand that because you're driving a big piece of kit when you're taxiing an airplane or towing it. Come to that, and sometimes your wingtip walkers aren't as efficient at signalling hazards as they should be. So sometimes these things happen, but. No, I really don't know. Considering the cost of the equipment that they're moving, it's amazing how blasé some airport workers can be. Those buses aren't cheap, I bet. Let alone the airplane.
Yeah, the airplanes are definitely not cheap. And it was at night, so you have limited visibility. That's obviously part of the setup here. Yeah, it wasn't foggy. That's good. That was good. Blah, blah, blah. I'm the same.
It's
more
dangerous. The airport is a dangerous place. We've unfortunately
it is,
had
yeah.
like
Especially-
3 or 4 stories about this in the past 6 months.
Especially the ramp, and I mentioned that in previous, relatively recent shows where you got to be careful out there.
Yep.
I'm sorry for those of you who are listening to the audio podcast and you heard what Liz just said, but it's worth repeating for everybody else. She said, these accidents are really ramping up.
Well, I was just looking at the extra bit on my show notes here, which says California prostitution law allows sex abuse to run rampant. So I wondered if that had something to do with it.
Oh, okay. Where are you reading that?
I'm reading it in the middle of my show notes.
Okay.
I think it's probably where an advert for another story
Must be. Yeah, that's odd.
Appeared.
Okay. Well, yeah, we should move on. This is from the Aviation Herald, avherald.com. A Qatar Airways Boeing 787-8, registration Alpha 7 Bravo Charlie Oscar, performing flight 161 from Doha to Copenhagen, Denmark, departed Doha's runway 16 left in nighttime conditions, 2 o'clock in the morning, and had climbed to about 1,800 feet when the aircraft entered a steep descent, losing 1,000 feet within 24 seconds. That doesn't sound like a steep descent to me. But anyway, the aircraft was subsequently recovered, climbed out, and continued to Copenhagen, where the aircraft landed safely about 6 hours later. According to information the Aviation Herald received on February 7th, 2023, the first officer was pilot flying. At about 1,600 feet, the aircraft was cleared direct to the next waypoint, and the first officer attempted to turn towards that waypoint, flying manually and without a flight director. The captain was slow to put the direct into the FMS. Oh, okay. So the flight director was probably on. It just wasn't giving good information because the manually flying first officer just started the turn, as a good pilot should. And the captain just didn't get the direct to that waypoint fix in the FMS very quickly. Okay, but lost situational awareness, sending the aircraft into a descent that reached 3,000 feet per minute sink rate and exceeded the flap speed limits until the captain took control of the aircraft and recovered about 800 feet above the water. That's not good. The occurrence was not reported to the authorities and only came to light later. ADS-B data show the aircraft reached the 1,850 feet MSL measured to standard pressure, then entered a descent reaching 850, 24 seconds later, while turning from 157 degrees true to about 110 degrees true. The aircraft subsequently leveled off momentarily and began to climb again. The airline reported on February 8th that they are aware of an incident on Flight 161 on the 10th of January, and internal investigations are ongoing, and the event has been immediately reported to authorities. So I would imagine that they get all this in-flight data, and in looking or perusing through it, they probably saw this kind of quite significant deviation from flight path. And so they probably I bet those pilots probably got a phone call. Hey, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe, did you how did everything go? Yeah. How'd that flight from Doha to Copenhagen? How was that?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, our company used to do it. They would dump down all the data from every flight, and if any flags were raised, and so they had, limitations on your angle of bank, say rate of climb or descent, major deviations, it would flag up an event, and then the tape would be de-identified, or the data would be de-identified, and then a little inquiry would happen between a few individuals in the office, plus a representative of the pilots, to ensure that it did remain de-identified, and they would look at the incident to see if it was something that they should require retraining, or whether it was just something of a growing trend, and then they would put out information to all the pilots saying, we're a bit worried, we've had like 3 of these events, so let's take a bit of care when we're doing this, don't allow yourself to be distracted, etc. So that is one of the fantastic things about being able to take the data from a flight and examine it in detail. It's not to catch pilots out, it's to make sure that any trends that are occurring that might be occurring because of the company's SOPs, or because of, say, some new equipment that's been fitted that isn't working very well, or perhaps the checklist data flow isn't ideal, then you get a chance to fix that before something more serious happens. Interestingly, I was going to say that if I had a difficult bit of work to do on the FMS, I was pilot monitoring, and we were given a directive or some action that required me to spend more than a few seconds setting it up, I would take control of the heading requirement up there in the FMS and put it into manual and point the aircraft at the required waypoint, so that the pilot flying could use his flight directives. I wouldn't just leave him expecting him to fly through the flight directives, in that he uses the basic information that's available to him on his attitude indicator and ignore the flight directors. Sometimes that can be a little bit confusing until the flight directors are now pointing to the correct waypoint. And some pilots are better at it than others. We're all capable of it, supposed to be. There are certain maneuvers, safety maneuvers we do, say on a parallel approach, where we are required to fly through the flight directors. So to ignore the flight directors and look at the basic information behind. And every pilot should be able to fly using the basic attitude and information without doing something like this. I'm sorry, I'm getting eaten to death by our new dog.
Okay. Well, do we need to call somebody to help you out?
Not until my arm is completely gnawed to the elbow. Yeah. So overall, I'm a bit disappointed that the captain was head down for quite so long. I'm very disappointed with the FO that he couldn't managed to do this maneuver without such a major loss of situational awareness. Disorientation is a term I would probably have used. So yeah, I'm not surprised there's an investigation going on. Definitely some additional training required here.
Absolutely. Yes?
I was just going to say, how do you handle that with an FO? Like, if you're the captain, do you debrief that and say, hey, by the way, it helped me out if these certain actions would help me out as a captain? Or do you just not deal with it? You just try to fly with the same person every time, like Captain Jeff, so you know what the guy's going to do?
I would expect my first officer to take control of the situation. After all, he's the guy flying it. I would expect him to say, oh, can you give me heading of this, which will be more or less direct to, and once you're established on the new heading, then he'd say, oh, could you update the FMS, please, and give me a direct to that waypoint. Good crews will do that almost without being asked, because they anticipate the needs of the pilot flying. But it's nice that you're both, if you say it, verbalize it, then at least you're on the same wavelength and there's no confusion about who's doing what.
Exactly. That's I would call it a best practice, what Captain Nick described on how to handle that situation with the automation, or the direction from the automation. Okay. So Liz is asking, maybe Nick Camacho is really referring to, like, how would you debrief this after it happened? Is that what you're saying, Camacho?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I was more, I was more like a, I don't know. And I may have misunderstood Nick a little bit, but I was thinking that he was saying, like, there's an action that's not a specifically prescribed action, but it's, like you said, a best practice that in that scenario, you would always want the guy to do a similar type of thing.
Yeah. Exactly right. The problem with flying through the flight directors is that the only part of the flight director you want him to ignore is the lateral bar, not the vertical bar that's giving him climb indications. So you don't want him to continue to fly in the wrong heading. You want him to start turning towards the correct one. So he should keep the aircraft symbol or the on the correct climb bar, vertical bar, and then just not ignore the heading bar until you can get him on the right heading, in which case that bar will then center up. And once you've got the direct to, then it will become more refined because the navigation system is now pointing him directly at the new waypoint. The important bit about this, though, is the climb. For some reason, he sort of ignored his vertical profile. The only adjustment he required was to the horizontal profile, but he allowed himself to be distracted somehow and allowed the nose to drop. So what was going on, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just quite right. He lost a small amount of height in 24 seconds, 1,000 feet in 24 seconds. So that's only about 500 feet a minute. But he probably didn't do it all in one go.
Check your math.
That's 2,000 feet a minute.
Yeah, it's actually just shy
yeah.
of 3,000 feet per minute.
Okay,
right?
yeah, that's what I was going to get. He reached 3,000 feet, but that's sorry about that. Yeah,
yeah. At first, when I saw that, I thought, well, that's not really that much, and then I did the math in my head. And went, oh, I guess it is almost 3,000.
It is. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, but regarding the now, some people who aren't pilots may be wondering what we're talking about when we say fly through the flight directors. On most modern airplanes that have modern avionics for quite some time now, we have a flight director system that basically gives you these bars, and the most common is like a vertical bar and a horizontal bar that show up on your primary flight display or your attitude indicator. And it kind of suggests that you should, bring the pitch up or start a bank to start turning to do whatever it is that the autoflight or flight director system thinks you should be doing. But there are times like this when you get an immediate turn and you need to fly over in a different direction, and that requires that somebody put in that new waypoint as the primary fix, and do all the typing and hit nav to make sure that it's going in that correct direction. And sometimes for some of us, it may have been an old guy like me who takes a little bit longer than the new kids on the block who can not even look at the screen and not even look at the keys on the FMS pad and probably do it in seconds. So I think the first officer was doing the right thing by, the air traffic control is expecting us to do this right now. So while the captain over there does his thing, I'm just going to go ahead and start the turn. And so flying through the flight directors means that you're kind of ignoring. And Nick made a very important point. You should be ignoring the vertical bar that's telling you which way to turn, not the horizontal bar, which is telling you what to do with your pitch. And as he was turning to the left, kind of raw data or flying through the flight directors, he didn't use his fundamental flying skills by allowing the pitch to drop. And that's when they got into that descent. A little disorientation. Now it is at night or early in the morning, very, very dark, right over the ocean. So that's a challenge when you're hand flying and you're using raw data or you're flying through flight directors and that kind of thing. You have to know your pitch settings and your power settings. And so if you know about where your pitch and power should be, you should be fine. But Nick Anderson, sorry. Would you guys, one of you change your name, please?
Sure.
When I'm flying and we get this kind of a situation, I do exactly what Nick says, and I just slew the heading bug over in the general direction of where that fix is. Sometimes you might have to take your navigation display and back it out a little bit, a little bit larger view, and okay, there's the fix that they want us to go direct to. Okay, I'm going to slew the heading bug over that way, and pull in my case on my airplane, pull the little selector knob out, and then that activates the heading select mode. And then your flight director bar moves to the left, if that's where the fix is supposed to be. And then you can use the flight directors, both laterally and pitch-wise. And then once things are kind of pointed in the right direction, and then the fix is in there and it's the active waypoint, boom, hit nav, and now you're back to normal. And that's a best practice in my opinion. So,
yeah. I mean, there are several ways to skin this cat, but that's the most common way that our crews would deal with it.
And sometimes I would actually, or in day-to-day operations, when we get something like this, and if it's a big turn in nav, it generally gives you kind of a wide, long turn. In heading mode, it gives you a more direct, tighter turn to get going to that waypoint they want you to go to. So a lot of times I'll tell my first officer, give me a heading over in that direction, and then they're kind of just, they're waiting to hit that nav button. I go, well, let me get a little bit more of the turn out of the way, and then once we're, almost pointing toward the waypoint, then we'll nav it. And that's because I just like to, get the turn out of the way a little bit quicker than using the nav computed turn radius. But anyway, that's just another way to skin the cat, as Captain Anderson just mentioned. But you did also mention, Nick, downloading data to determine if there is some kind of a trend going on. But I wouldn't imagine that this would be a problem at all, and you'd probably never have any kind of a incident that would. Oh, wait a minute. Our next news item is from the Air Current. Never mind what I just said. Apparently, maybe this is a trend. A United Airlines Boeing 777-200 came within about 800 feet of impacting the Pacific Ocean off the north coast of Maui shortly after takeoff on December 18. The occurrence, not previously reported, adds a series of extremely serious safety incidents and major operational disruptions within the U.S. aviation system in recent weeks. Flight 1722 from Maui to San Francisco left Kahului Airport 2:49 p.m. Hawaiian time in stormy weather. Okay, so this was not at night. And initially appeared to climb normally. Granular data analyzed with Flight Radar 24 showed the aircraft reached roughly 2,200 feet before beginning a steep dive that, according to the tracking telemetry, reached a descent rate of nearly 8,600 feet per minute. Now, that's pretty significant. The aircraft quickly recovered, but not before descending below 775 feet. Two people familiar with the incident said the climb produced forces of nearly 2.7 times the force of gravity on the aircraft and its occupants, as that steep descent transitioned to an 8,600 foot per minute climb. The entire incident appears to have stretched no more than 45 seconds, and in between radio calls with air traffic controllers in Maui, according to live ATC recordings reviewed by the Air Current. The aircraft subsequently climbed to 33,000 feet and landed in California 27 minutes early after the 4-hour, 15-minute Pacific crossing. The Boeing wide-body, configured with 364 seats, was quickly turned around at San Francisco and departed to Chicago on its next flight about 2.5 hours later. Let's see, an analysis of granular data from Flight Radar 24 of United 722's departure from Maui showed a steep dive and recovery. The airport was facing heavy rain at the time, and the apparent steep descent came just after the aircraft entered overcast skies at 2,000 feet. The aircraft reached an observed downward vertical speed of 8,500. Okay, we talked about that. We talked about the G-forces. Weather information available at the time of departure, heavy rain. Okay, they're stating that again. It's not clear if the abrupt dive and recovery of the flight was noticed by ATC controllers or air traffic controllers in Maui. One senior aviation safety official said such an extreme dive would normally prompt a call to the aircraft to ensure there was no threat of hijacking or continuing issues maintaining control of the aircraft. The incident, which appears to have escaped any commentary on social media, came, well, until they released this report or this article, aboard a Hawaii Airlines flight from Phoenix to Honolulu during severe came the same day as that turbulence incident of the Hawaiian Airlines was it an Airbus 330, I think, that was descending and injured 25 people.
Yeah, remember that.
Yeah. So there was, stormy weather, nasty weather. Yeah. So there has been speculation in the aviation community about what happened here. One speculation is that the crew maybe initially were hand flying. They go into the overcast, the bottom layer. Now they're in the weather. Autoflight system is engaged. And remember that incident, was it last year or a couple of years ago? In the Middle East, a 777 was taking off, and then for some stupid reason, the airplane started leveling off and then descending shortly after liftoff, and they just barely missed hitting a residential area, and I forgot how close to the ground they ended up getting before somebody decided that was not a good idea, and they continued to climb. And remember, they put in the altitude select window, they put in 0, 0, 0, 0. And so when they engaged the autoflight system, or in this case, I think I'm not sure if they were hand flying or not, but they were just blindly following the flight directors, not flying through them, and setting the appropriate pitch setting and power setting to make it a safe, normal kind of a departure. And they just blindly follow the flight director pitch bar downward, right in, heading toward the ground. And that was almost a major catastrophe. And they're thinking that there is some speculation here that that's what happened. Once they engaged the autopilot, it went, oh, okay, you want me to descend to 0. And so it just started going down very rapidly. I don't know if that's the case or not. Of course, that's, as I said, just speculation. But anyway, it's concerning. There are a lot of things happening lately that really is concerning.
No, I have to agree, Jeff. This is eerily similar. Certainly, in the height or the part of the flight that it occurred, and the height they got down to, and the fact that they, climbed back up again as if nothing happened and carried on, and no one outside of their company probably would have known about it, which is a little bit worrying, because you've got to share this sort of incident around a little, because these two companies, completely different countries, they're flying the same manufactured aircraft, but one's a 777, the other one's a 78. Not a lot of similarity. If you don't make these things, put these things on the sort of worldwide database, then other companies never find out about them, and you don't realize that there might be a problem that's affecting, your company, their company, everyone. It has the potential. So, yeah, and it is a worry. This aircraft went down very fast, so I'm wondering if there was a stall involved, but we don't have any speed indications. As if someone let the airplane get very slow or whip the flaps up when they weren't supposed to. We don't have any information like that, but that would possibly be another cause why it descended so fast. It really was quite a steep descent, and then required a lot of pull at the bottom of this maneuver to get it going back up again. 2.7 G exceeds the airframe maximum G capability. Most airliners in the clean configuration are limited to only 2.5 G maximum G. 2.7 has obviously exceeded that. So from that point of view, I'm a little surprised they carried on for their flight and didn't return immediately to have the aircraft checked out, having over-G'd it. Only marginally. So, you might say, oh, that's not really worth thinking about, but yeah.
Well, it's at least a required inspection to ensure that nothing was overstressed.
Yeah. So do you really want to complete your entire flight before you get that inspection? That's a matter of judgment from the crew. Interesting one, though. And the fact that air traffic didn't pick it up, that I'm not quite so surprised with, unless their equipment should have alerted them, through the altitude change that was unexpected and very rapid. So, yeah, I'd like to find out some more about this, but whether we will or not, I don't know. Is it being reviewed by the NTSB? Do you know?
I'm
I
not sure.
I believe it is because there was. Well, no.
Okay. We have, let's see, I'm looking at the bottom of Simon from Aviation Herald to see if he says anything about that.
The crew did a voluntary safety report. Is that one of the NASA reports you guys can do?
A NASA report or an ASAP, probably, or both.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they say it was not a reportable or serious incident. But
an over-G would
the over-G
normally...
part of it, I would think that airplane is modern enough to have all these data collection devices that would, indicate at least to the pilots or maybe somebody back at the headquarters of the company that the airplane did exceed a G limitation.
Oh, golly, if that had been an Airbus... All the alarm bells would be ringing.
The 777-200, maybe it's old
Virgin
enough.
Headquarters.
Yeah, it'd be like those guys waiting for you in your F-18 in Alice Springs.
Yes. Yeah, but you wouldn't even get that far. Within 5 minutes, the ACARs would just start spitting out this. Excuse me, what have you guys been doing?
Yeah.
I mean, we used to get that with, oh, excuse me, have you noticed anything wrong with the number 4 engine? And you go, no. Oh, okay, we were just wondering. Why are you asking? Because the engineers back at headquarters got more information about what was happening to the aircraft and the engines than we did in the airplane. So,
it's crazy. Yeah, they get, as you said, a lot of times they get more information than we have. Yeah. Big Brother is definitely watching, Liz. Main Man Micah in our live audience says, if I read it correctly, it's not being reviewed by the NTSB because it was not an accident. That could very well be. Maybe this is more for the FAA to kind of take action and investigation. I'm not sure, but I don't know. We shall see if anything comes of this. I'm sorry, say again, Liz? Yeah, I don't like all these close calls either. Nobody does.
I think the most...
Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the flying aspect of it is terrible, right? But I was amazed that, I mean, 2.5 Gs is significant. And I would think that there's enough people flying regularly that were on that airplane that would have thought that would have been a unusual situation. I'm amazed that it was never reported or didn't spread like wildfire on Twitter, because I feel like there's all sorts of far less relevant things that happen on airlines and everywhere else that become like gigantic issues on Twitter or various forms of social media.
Like using thrust reverse.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's a hole in your engine. Quite right, Nick. I don't know.
Oh, we're going to get to that, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see if if anything comes from that. We covered this accident, a North American B-25N that crashed near Stockton, California, back in 2020. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip one? Yeah, I did. Okay, no, let's do that. I'm sorry. The control room is pointing out that I skipped one. Sorry. Let's do item D next. A final report. This involved, is it Widerow or Widerow? Widerow, de Havilland -8 300. Registration Lima November Whiskey Foxtrot Oscar, performing flight 577 from Kristiansund to Bergen, Norway, was en route at flight level 220, about 250 nautical miles north of Bergen, when the aircraft entered severe icing. The crew turned west over the coastline while descending to flight level 160, where no icing had been reported. Eventually, the ice broke off, but affected both of the engines, Pratt & Whitney 123s. The aircraft needed to descend further to flight level 120. The crew finally managed a safe landing in Bergen about 45 minutes after leaving flight level 220 and about 25 minutes after the ice broke loose. Norway's
Statens havarikommisjon for transport
rated the occurrence a serious incident and opened an investigation. Do you think I was really going to attempt to pronounce that on my own?
Yeah, I was really was hoping.
Well, here, let me do it again.
Statens havarikommisjon for transport.
I was using my high voice.
That's very good, Jeffrey.
Thank you. The occurrence aircraft remained on the ground for 5 days before returning to service. On the 9th of February, 2023, this organization released their final report, concluding the probable causes were while climbing, they inadvertently flew through an area of severe icing conditions, and the crew did take corrective action by changing course and altitude. However, they were unable to sufficiently limit the duration of the aircraft's exposure to severe icing conditions. As a result, ice formed in the aircraft and inside the engine's air inlets. Let's see. On approach to Bergen Airport, the aircraft lost engine power on the left engine, then on the right engine, and then on the left engine again. And the aircraft's automatic ignition system restarted both engines, but the startup sequence took time, and the aircraft was, at a point, completely without engine power for a brief period. The engines flamed out due to ice detaching from the engine's air inlets, and the ice entered the combustion chamber as slush, or the ice either entered the combustion chamber as slush and water and caused a flameout, or disrupted the airflow into the engine sufficiently to stall it. The crew acted professionally in a highly demanding situation and landed the aircraft safely at Flesland, Bergen. So the investigatory agency basically said, "Hey, they did well. They did the right thing. It was not something that they expected to fly through, and they did their best to." But it was interesting that part of this report mentioned the racket that the ice was making as it was being flung off the propeller blades, and the cabin attendant found the situation dramatic, with abnormally strong shaking, vibrations, and loud bangs as the ice shed from the propeller hit the side of the fuselage. They interviewed the crew, and they said they didn't think it was a big deal. It was more annoying than something that was concerning as far as safety was concerned. But I don't know about you guys, but that would probably be something I'd be concerned about. I mean, hearing all those big noises and the pieces of ice, being slung into the fuselage and shaking the entire airplane, man.
Yeah, I must admit, if I was going to book a seat on one of these airplanes, I would not want to be sitting right beside the propellers. In front of or behind, that's fine. Because they've not necessarily on this type, but similar twin props, these propellers have been known to break up and puncture the fuselage.
And I guess Camacho, they build like extra reinforcement around those areas of the fuselage. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, on the C-47, we have ice shields, which is basically just a secondary piece of sheet metal that is easily replaceable. So if you get a ton of ice and you have a reasonable enough amount of damage that you want to replace it, it's pretty straightforward to replace the ice shield versus having to, do surgery to the airplane.
Yeah. Sam Dawson in our audience, he flew ATRs. He said flying ATRs in the winter, that was not uncommon. So I guess, when you probably first hear it, it probably shakes you up a little bit, but then after a while you realize that, okay.
Well, I think they moved all the ATRs down to the Caribbean because of that, right?
Oh. Me and American Eagle, I know that they had that stall and holding with icing, and I think right after that they did. They moved all their ATRs.
Okay, maybe
down to the Caribbean. The slinging of ice, not the engines failing. Okay, he's making sure he's clarifying that it was not uncommon for the ice to be slung off the propellers. But it was not a common thing for the engines to actually flame
I
out.
don't know, those 80 pilots, they're tough. I mean, in the Airbus, we just made snowballs and threw them at each other. But slinging chunks of ice around, oof.
That's not good.
Yeah, my dad did mention when they were flying the Goon back and forth to Europe a couple years ago that was one of the more disconcerting aspects of it to him when he had a couple legs up front and they flew through a little bit of ice. The ice hitting the cockpit at 3,500 feet or however high they were, with no land in sight.
I was just going to make the general comment. This is a very detailed report from the captain about what happened, what actions they took, what heights they were flying at, which engines failed, etc. Particularly during the approach, when they, at one point, don't think they had any engines going. So I have to take my hat off to him, because if I had to write a report like this, I don't think I could have managed half that amount of detail. But I mean, he really gave the investigators a good idea of what they were doing. So no wonder they were able to comment favorably on his actions.
Yeah. This is from the final report that I'm showing on, or sharing my screen, and we'll have this in the show notes. Picture of the ice on Spigot. Now, a Spigot, which is not pronounced correctly by a lot of young people here in this country. It's not a spigot, it's a spigot. And but that usually has something to do with like a water valve or shuttle or a faucet. In this case, a spigot is also, and that's mostly a U.S. Canadian thing, I think. But I guess in most parts of the world, a spigot is like a peg or some kind of a structure like what we're seeing here. I think that's the windshield wiper blade assembly. And that's one of those things, at least on all the transport category aircraft that I've flown, we kind of use as something that's right in front of us, right outside the front window that we're looking directly through. And you can see the bolt, I think is what we are looking at to see if any ice is forming on that. And that's a very good indication for us that airframe icing, wing and tail icing might be occurring. But I've never seen anything like what we're seeing in this picture. That's a very large chunk of ice that's forming on that protrusion directly outside the windscreen of the aircraft. And then here is
You've got me thinking now, because we had one on the Airbus on the center split between the two front windshields that stuck out like that.
Yeah.
And it was actually illuminated. It had little bars of illumination on it. It was about a couple of inches long, probably about 5 centimeters. We knew it was there to see if it was there was ice in the air, because that's one of the first things that the ice, with ice, we could watch ice form on it. But I couldn't remember what it was called. Was it really called a spigot?
Well, that's what they're calling it in this report. I would never refer to it as a spigot, as I said. Yeah, it might be a translation from the Norwegian. You're correct. You're right, Liz. But here's a picture of the aircraft where you can see a little bit of the ice still on the leading edge and the nose, and here's a little bit more detailed. That's after it landed.
Nose, isn't it?
And it was like 8 degrees C and rain at the airport, so it's well above, +8. So it was well above freezing temperatures, but that shows you how much ice they picked up, because it was still on there, even though the atmospheric
and
conditions.
on the front of his spinner as well.
Mm-hmm. And you can see that's the air intake over there on the right side of that, where the ice probably formed like that on the spigot, and then finally just when it chunked off, it just got sucked right into that air intake. And they did notice that there was some damage to the compressor blades caused by the ice that came off the engine inlet. So they did a good job, this crew, on managing the situation professionally, as the agency mentioned. And I can't find that sound effect, so I won't do it. All right. Oh, yeah, I don't know. iHaul Boxes says, would it not be called an ice indicator, Captain Nick?
We used to get ice warning indicators underneath the nose that brought up a caption. They vibrated, and if the frequency of the vibration changed because ice was forming, we used to get ice detected and then severe ice detected as a warning. This was just a visual only, so I don't know if you'd give it the same name as the bits that the automatic detectors underneath the aircraft or not.
I have an ice detector below my nose. My mustache.
You do. So do I.
I can always tell when ice is like up, like when you're drinking.
My chin too.
Yeah, and the ice kind of hits it.
Yeah. He has one on his microphone.
Okay. All right. Let's continue. Let's go to California, Stockton. We talked about this shortly after it occurred in September of 2020. A warbird, a North American B-25 November, crash landed near Stockton in a field. And so we covered that. And they're just now publishing the final report. While the airplane was in cruise flight and being flown by the co-pilot, left engine fuel pressure fluctuated, which was followed by a brief loss of engine power. Concerned that the airplane might have a failed engine-driven fuel pump, the pilot turned the boost pumps to high and asked the passenger, the airplane's mechanic, to open the fuel crossfeed valve. As the airplane approached its intended destination, both fuel pressure needles began to fluctuate. The pilot assumed that fuel starvation to the engines was occurring and decided to make an off-airport landing in a field behind their airplane's position due to residential areas located between the airplane's location and the airport. The pilot stated that he took control of the airplane from the co-pilot, initiated a right turn toward the field, and that shortly afterward, both engines lost power, total power. During the landing roll, the pilot observed a ditch in front of the airplane and was able to get the airplane airborne briefly to avoid the first ditch. However, that second ditch always gets you. He was not able to avoid a second, larger ditch. Subsequently, the airplane struck the second ditch, became airborne, and impacted the ground, which resulted in substantial damage to the fuselage. Did I include some of the pictures in there, Liz? Okay. In the field, that it kind of looks like they, landed gear up, but I'm thinking maybe that second ditch and subsequent impact with the ground just sheared off the gear. I don't know. That's pretty beefy gear, isn't it, Nick Camacho?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Recovery company personnel reported that during recovery, the wreckage, about 1 gallon of fuel was removed from the 2 forward and 2 aft wing fuel tanks. That's not a lot of fuel. Post-accident examination of the airplane revealed no evidence of any pre-existing anomalies that would have precluded normal operation of either engine, except that all 4 main fuel tank fuel gauges displayed erroneous indications after each tank was filled with water. Well, there's your problem. Don't fill the fuel tanks with water. Oh, this is after the crash. Okay. Yeah, you get icing. No leaks were observed throughout the fuel system. The airplane was last refueled on the day before the accident with 497.7 gallons. When the airplane was last refueled, the fuel tanks were reportedly filled to about 3 inches below the fuel filler neck. The investigation could not determine, based on the available evidence for this accident, how much of the airplane's fuel load, a maximum capacity of 670 gallons, how much was on board after it was refueled. Additionally, the pilot reported that he commonly used a fuel burn rate of 150 gallons per hour for flight planning purposes. That figure included takeoff fuel burn, recorded automatic dependent surveillance broadcast data, ADS-B data, shows that the airplane had flown 4 hours and 1 minute since refueling and included 6 takeoffs and 5 landings. As part of the investigation, the pilot estimated that 485.9 gallons of fuel had been used since the last refueling. However, on the basis of the pilot's initial planned fuel load and recorded flight times, the airplane would have used about 600 gallons of fuel. The pilot later submitted an estimated fuel burn for the flights since refueling of 485.9 gallons. The flight manual did not have fuel burn references for the exact power settings and altitudes flown. Thus, the hourly fuel burn could not be determined. Pilot, co-pilot, passenger did not visually verify the fuel levels in all 4 main fuel tanks before this accident flight. The pilot also underestimated the amount of fuel that would be used for the planned flights. As a result, fuel exhaustion occurred, which led to a total loss of engine power. So a classic fuel exhaustion accident, and there were a couple serious injuries and one minor injury of the 3.
Yeah, it's very sad because this is an incredibly valuable aircraft. I'm just looking at the pilot's statement that he estimated the aircraft would have used about 600 gallons of fuel, which would have well exceeded
No, the pilot
they had on board.
The pilot said that he thought they used 485.
Okay.
And then, as part of the
on the
investigation,
basis of the pilot's initial fuel planning load and recorded flight times, the airplane would have used about 600 gallons.
Right. So that's, I think what's happening there is the pilot said he thought they used 485 gallons, but then the pilot also said the fuel burn is 150 gallons an hour. So then the accident board went back and looked, and the airplane had flown 4 hours. So the accident board's saying if you're burning 150 gallons an hour and you flew for 4 hours, you've burned about 600 gallons. So I think that's the big issue here, is why the pilot only thought he had burned 485 gallons if he had flown the airplane for 4 hours.
And I guess there was some issue with the accuracy of the fuel gauges, so that's why they couldn't be quite sure, I guess. Although, Nick, what do you think, Nick Camacho, regarding that statement that this accident flight, they did not visually inspect the fuel level?
Yeah. I don't know how they operate their organization, and how they approach flights, right? But so all of this is in the scope of my experience with a similar airplane, but a different type, right? Our airplane is old, and we have, on multiple occasions, we've had to deal with fuel leaks, and so it's not uncommon to have a fuel leak, and when you have 800 gallons of fuel on board, it's pretty easy for a minor fuel leak to have a significant impact. But also, one thing that's working against us is our airplane is stored outside. And this sounds crazy, and we actually thought people were stealing gas from us at one point. But the C-47 has 4 fuel tanks. It sounds like similar to the B-25. 4 fuel tanks in the wings, and they're aluminum tanks inside the aluminum wings. And our airplane in the summer, when it's sitting outside, what we've calculated now is that we evaporate off between like 15 and 30 gallons of gas a week. So if you don't fly the airplane, it's significant enough for us that we now have a fuel storage solution. We have a fuel trailer that we, if we're not going to fly the airplane for a month or a couple of months, we drain all the fuel out of it, and then we have this fuel trailer that we can, store in the shade or manage that. And so, just based on that experience alone, I just think it's a valuable check to look in the tank. And there's it's a commonly held belief that aircraft fuel gauges only have to be correct at 0. And there's, huge arguments about that in the general
I've heard that over and over, but that's not true, is it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty common to have poorly calibrated fuel gauges or fuel gauges that you don't trust. So you just have to, and especially in old airplanes, right? You just have to be really diligent about it. So like in our case, in our airplane, we check fuel and oil, right? We check the fuel and the oil before every flight. And so that's check one. And then our first cross check is all of our fuel gauges work to the best of our knowledge. And then beyond that, we've added a fuel totalizer to the airplane. So, in any one of those things, it's hard to just account on it being perfect, right? Like the fuel totalizer, when we flew the airplane from Wichita to Maryland, I think it was maybe 6 or 6.5 hours, and we burned nearly 600 gallons of gas. And that freaking fuel totalizer was accurate to 1.5 gallons, which is hard for me to imagine. If I wasn't there, I wouldn't believe it. But it's a really cool piece of equipment. But if you don't, it's just like everything else in aviation, right? If you don't give it the right information, it doesn't do you a lot of good to know how much fuel you burn if you don't know how much fuel you have on board. And it's the same thing with your fuel gauges. If you put 100 gallons or 600 gallons of gas in the airplane, but you have a fuel leak or you have, these various issues, the fuel gauge is only as good as the information that you have to work with it. So I'm surprised that they were not checking the gas, I guess is my TLDR comment for that whole statement.
In our audience, Anthony Voigt says, how well does the storage trailer work? Does it require some sort of stabilizer for keeping the fuel?
No, we don't store it that long. And avgas is generally more stable than like auto fuel. So like if you leave auto fuel sitting for a few months, you have more issues than you do with avgas. It's not uncommon for avgas to be much older just because a lot of people don't fly very often in general aviation. So like it's totally plausible that guys are filling up their airplane once a year, flying it a handful of times. So you still have gas in it that could be a year old. So
maybe not quite as hydroscopic as auto fuel.
Right.
Okay. Did I use the right term?
These warbirds don't have fuel compensators. I don't know what a fuel compensator is.
Obviously, you don't have them.
Apparently, we don't have them.
Listen, what kind of AMP is he? Well, that's rude. That's really rude, Liz. A lovable one, yes, for sure. Okay. Let's end the news by going directly to H, and that is a touching story. This is from Paddle Your Own Canoe, and the title of this is Kaya's Last Flight. And I'm going to play the video, and there is some, what do they call it? No, what is it when you throw up? I'm so, not throw up, like, but CC, what is that called? The closed captioning, whatever. There's some titling. There's some words on the video. There we go. Because the PA that's being made is not super clear. So we will. I'll probably read what the pilot said after we play this video. Wow. I need to take a break, don't I? Okay, here we go.
We have a special guest on today's flight. Kaya is a German Shepherd service dog who's been with her handler Cole since 2014. She was specifically trained to help veterans cope with mental health issues. She was the inspiration for the PAWS Act. It's a federal law that allows the VA to find service dogs for veterans with post-traumatic stress, which was signed into law in 2021. Lobbying for the PAWS Act and traveling with Cole, Kaya has flown on Southwest over 250 times out of her 320 flights she's been on. Sadly, Kaya was recently diagnosed with an untreatable cancer, so we have the solemn honor of taking her on what will be her last flight. She goes home to rest where she was born and first met Cole. If you have the opportunity and feel so inclined, feel free to search for her story and pay her a visit when we arrive in Dallas to show her some love. On behalf of Southwest Airlines, the two veterans up front, we thank both Kaya and Cole, a Marine Corps veteran, for their service.
And you'll have to watch the video, which we'll have in the linked in the show notes. This German Shepherd, for almost the entire PA, was just resting her head on this this pelt of fluffy mat or whatever on the floor in front of one of the, it looks like one of the bulkhead seats, and probably just right there and between the legs of her master, Cole, and she didn't bat an eye until everybody started applauding, and she's like starting to look up like, what's going on? Why are people making noise with their hands? But just a very touching story, and I guess it was pretty clear, the PA being made, the audio, that she had been in service for almost 8 years, something like that, and had flown 250 of those flights on Southwest out of 320, and that she was just diagnosed with cancer, and so very touching. And we all love dogs here on the APG, at least the APG crew, and I know many of you out there also kind of share that same feeling about animals, pets in general, and it's just sad. But anyway, too bad that Rick wasn't with us today, because he's got a bunch of dogs just like that he owns and takes care of, and is a foster parent for, he and his wife, his partner. And anyway, what do you think, guys? Nick, did it break you up enough that you can continue to talk?
Yeah, very touching. Anything like that's going to, be very emotional for me in particular. But yeah, absolutely lovely to see. What a sweet looking dog as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You're a dog owner as well, Camacho.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway. Okay. Well, let's not dwell on that, and we'll move right to the Getting to Know Us segment. We're going to play that as soon as I can find it. Right here. Okay, go. It's that time of the show where we get to know what's been going on with various crew members that are here today. And we're going to start with Nick Camacho, because I believe you'll be leaving us after this, and let us continue on. So what's been happening?
Not much. Let's see, last weekend, I guess, I got up in the Debonair and had a quick flight before it goes down for the annual at the end of this month, basically. So, and I had to get that done last week because I was traveling out to work in California this week. So, flew from Wichita to California on Thursday. The big news for me is that United Express has altered its operation. So I now was on Embraer 175s from Wichita to Denver. Yeah.
Oh, you're missing that CRJ 200, aren't you?
Yeah. And so, it was it was kind of a crapshoot going from Wichita to Denver, because they fly they sometimes flew CRJs. I think they sometimes flew 319s or the smaller 737s. So you could get a nice airplane, or you could get a CRJ. But it was always a CRJ 200 from Denver to SLO, which is a 3-hour flight in that tiny little airplane. So it was exciting to fly on the Embraer 175, which is still a regional jet, but it's a little more modern. I can hear the PA announcements, or I can comprehend the PA announcements. They don't just sound like the teacher in Peanuts. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
We did have an interesting situation leaving Wichita. They got the airplane all boarded up, and we were getting ready to go. And the captain came on and said, so we had, there was some maintenance done on the airplane. The maintenance is all completed. We're just, we're waiting on approval from the manufacturer, from the engineering department of the manufacturer for the repair that was made. Which I thought was a little weird that they were just saying like, hey, we did a thing to the airplane and now we're trying to get it approved. And I sent that to a couple of people, and Captain Nick made the comment like he's just trying to keep you informed, which I agree. And I do appreciate that. But I've just heard, I've heard stories of like on the GA side, FISDOs, keeping it generic, I guess, like FISDOs, somebody applying for an approval on a GA airplane for an alteration. And the FISDO says, well, let me come out and look at it. And they say, well, we've already done the work.
Oh,
and the FISDO doesn't appreciate that, but there's nothing illegal about that, right? You just have to return the airplane to the way it was previously. So I thought that was interesting. And it was more, I think, Jeff, you made the comment that it's more likely that it's a pre-prescribed action, I guess, is maybe how I don't remember how you phrased it, but you basically said like probably something that's happened in the past and they've just got to get the physical sign off from the manufacturer. And the only reason I keep saying that is because the manufacturer obviously is in Brazil. Yeah. So having like a plane full of people waiting on that communication seemed a little dodgy, but they got it squared away in a much more timely manner than I actually expected it to happen.
Maybe he, in his effort to, make sure they were transparent and communicated well with the passengers, maybe he didn't phrase it correctly and it made it sound like, we just did something and now we're seeking the approval from the manufacturer that it was okay what we did. But I think what he probably meant, I'm sure it was already approved and they just had to get the darn piece of paper from, the blessing from the company before they could leave. And I mentioned also in our communication with the crew here that sometimes the maintenance action takes less time, and many times this happens. The actual maintenance occurring to the aircraft takes less time than the actual signing off all the paperwork, all the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, because the FAA is very, very particular about making sure that everything was done and documented properly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it only gets worse, right? As you go downhill, as they say, stuff rolls downhill. So at least the airline has the weight of a giant corporation behind it when it goes to the FAA, compared to some of the interactions I or people I know have had, as a small person who owns one airplane trying to get something approved. And the FAA is like, yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different world, I guess.
Yeah. But it was, after that, it was smooth sailing. The weather was nice. It was a nice flight.
Much more comfortable airplane, right?
Yeah. Sam makes a comment about the ATR. So I never flew on an ATR, but the Embraer 120, when I moved out to California for college, the way for me to get home or like to get back and forth was Wichita to Denver and whatever, Denver to LA. Both of those are probably like 737s. And then LA to SLO in an Embraer. And I remember it was like an hour 10. It was maybe like an hour, 10-minute flight or something, or maybe an hour flight in the Embraer. And I remember it was a huge deal when they upgraded that route from a Embraer 120 to a CRJ 200, which that turned it into like a 36-minute flight.
Just so that people who are new to the show understand, what is SLO?
Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh. SLO is short for San Luis Obispo. And Jeff literally just made the comment before we started today about how people don't understand when I say that. But San Luis Obispo is the town, the city or town in California that I work in. And it's also where I went to school. So, yeah. And the Embraer 120 is twin engine turboprop airplane, not too dissimilar from like a Dash 8. Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is trending in the right direction here, right? Like, I'm on pace to, by the end of my lifetime, be able to get on like a 787 in Wichita and go directly to SLO at the
I'm not sure that's going to happen. Yeah, Liz is saying that Rick will drop by in a 747, pick you up.
Oh, Rick will drop by in a 747. He just probably won't take me to San Luis Obispo.
No, he's going to go right into SLO.
He'll take me to wherever he takes that.
Liz was saying,
Special
well, people might
747.
get confused because when we introduce you, we say low and slow pilot. I guess we should say low and slow in SLO.
Yeah.
Anyway, is that your boss?
No, I
Okay.
just keep looking at who's pulling in.
Yeah.
Because I'm waiting for someone to come like busting into the conference room.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, thanks for showing up for the show and taking time out from your busy work day. I know it's Saturday, but hey, some people have to work on the weekends, like Nick Camacho.
And it looks like I've disappointed Liz. I'm sorry, Liz.
Uh-oh.
With all my CRJ hate.
Yeah, she said she still loves you. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to anything else before you part ways with us?
I don't think so. I'm in California for a week and a half. So depending on when the next show is, you may or may not see me.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll keep the fingers crossed that it works out well for you. If not, then we'll see you on the one after that. And you'll have a lot more to talk about.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.
Cheers, Nick.
Okay. Speaking of Nick Anderson, Captain Nick, how have you been, sir?
Very well, thank you very much indeed, Jeff. Quite a reasonable break, really, since the last show. Gave me a chance to do a plain tale I have been sort of waiting to do for a while, but it's not a simple one to research. So that's today's plain tale. So I appreciated having a few extra days off to prep that. That was
I did that
perfect.
just for you.
That's very, very kind. And of course, we're going to find out all about your trip in the box, your days in the box. Poor you.
Mm-hmm.
I know how that feels. So a huge sympathy for you.
You miss it, don't you?
Oh, yeah, like a hole in the head. But the only thing aviation related thing I've done this week was to give a talk on my days in the Phantom to a group of enthusiasts in Guildford. And that's really been it. My darling wife is away for the weekend at some fancy hotel. She is a needle woman. She's not allowed. She says that's sexist. She can't call us needle women. So I said, well, what are you? She said, well, we're sewers. And that's spelt the same as a sewer. So, so I don't know. Anyway, she's up at some hotel learning how to do a special kind of patchwork with a bunch of other lady sewers. So she's having fun. I've got all three dogs to look after, and it's feeding time. So if you know how accurate a dog's stomach clock is, you'll realize that I'm being hassled here. So I just am going to say I'm going to leave it to you and blank myself out while you chat, while I go and feed the dogs, if that's all right.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right, great. Back in a minute.
Okay.
Oh, unless you want me to talk about quickly the artwork?
We could do that after you get back, if you'd like, or before. It's either way.
I may stretch into your coffee bar. So we had a story last week about putting footballs inside the cargo head, and a captain who was perhaps a bit overly worried about whether these footballs were going to burst as he climbed his aircraft due to the pressure change. Of course, it gave rise to the title Ball Buster. That was a good one, I thought. And so I needed to find some way to illustrate that. The background of that picture is actually a cargo hold. You can't see much of it because I filled it full of footballs. And, of course, what we've got here is, what do you call this in the States? Foosball? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, foosball.
All right, a tabletop football game. And we've got a particular player who's going to take a free kick, and in front of him is a wall of players all guarding their essentials. So they obviously don't want the ball, anything being busted. So that was the theme of the artwork. And if anyone was looking for the show title, you just have to look at the scoring blocks at the back to see 556 there.
Where now? I tried to find it and I couldn't.
Well, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. The blocks at the back are over the goal.
Oh, okay.
At the back of the table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Nice.
There you go. Oh, and I found a really good, energetic football player to take the free kick.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit different than the more realistic looking than all the other foosball players
yes.
on the board.
The poor APG players that look like they're very worried.
Yes.
Brilliant.
All right.
Steph tells me she's going to get one of these tables in her games room. So next time we're down there.
Very nice. I guess foosball, that must be from the German. Is that kind of a German word? Foos?
I guess we don't call it. We just call it sort of tabletop soccer or tabletop football here in the UK.
That's more accurate.
I think you're probably right. It probably is a continental thing. Don't know. Perhaps Marcus or
well, very good. We'll get to those dogs before they gnaw your arm or leg off.
Okay. Catch you after the coffee bar.
Okay. All right, so it's just me, and we're going to get you caught up on what I've been doing. And the reason, as Nick mentions, the reason why it's been so long since we've had a show is because I was in training. I mentioned that on the last show that I was going to be in recurrent training, and it's my last time in that stupid box and that training center facility. And, I thought maybe I'd get a little emotional and teary-eyed, walking on the building, the bridges between the buildings and stuff like that. And I went, nope, don't feel bad at all. Never having to return to this place with all these evil people evaluating your every move in the simulator. I'm pretty sure now I'm still going to be in the zone for another recurrent training cycle, but I'm pretty positive that I am just not going to make it. Hopefully, maybe retiring early so I don't have to do this again. So that's it. I'm making the statement now. That was my last recurrent training. And Liz, can you show the picture of Brent? And there we go. I snapped a selfie with First Officer Brent and I. We did the recurrent training together, and the box is behind us there, the 717-200. And that was that evil torture machine that we spent 4 hours for the last couple of days, Thursday and Friday. And we did well and got through it. And very soon, that gentleman there standing next to me, behind me, will be making another visit to the training center and that evil box because he's upgrading to captain. So he'll have to spend about 8 periods, I think, in that simulator box, or one of the 3 that we have. iHall Boxes is asking, do I get to pick who I'm training with? Well, if you're senior, as both Brent and I are, we can do our best to request training. He went in his early, so it's like a 3-month window for training. There's like the middle month is your zone month or whatever they call it. The first month is your early month, and the last month, the third month, is your must go, or I think they call it the grace period or grace month. So I ended up pushing mine to the last month that I could possibly go, and Brent, this was his first month of availability, so he was able to request training in his early month, and so it worked out. Robert Hoffman there says, I'm working for such company now, maintaining those evil torturing devices. Ugh. Well, God bless you, Robert. We do appreciate, actually, those things working well, because we don't want to spend any more time than we need to in there. And there are times when the simulator kind of doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And if it's such a bad problem, then sometimes they basically cancel the period and say, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to come back on another day and finish up. So that's not fun at all. No. Anywho, what I meant to do was first talk about, if you listen to episode 556, you'll note in the audio-only podcast, and most of you out there listening, or part of the show, or listening to the show, are listening via the audio podcast. And you'll notice that every time I mention my adventure with Armando in Charlotte, there's a beeping sound. I'm censoring something because I realized, or people kind of informed me after we did the last show, that I kept referring to Armando's airplane as a Super Cub. My mistake. It's not a Super Cub. It's a Super Cruiser. And we're showing right now on the video a picture, and again, in the show notes, of let's show the first one. That's the Super Cub. And then the next one is the Super Cruiser. Now, I don't know about you, but they look really, really similar. I guess there's difference in when they were made, and also the size of the engines. The Super Cub being the more modern version of the Cub, and bigger engines. And this was one of the first Super Cruisers, I think, built in 1946. I think the Super Cubs started coming or being manufactured in 49, and then after. And I think I don't think they're still being made, but maybe they are. I don't know. But I know I've seen some like 1990 something models of the Super Cub. So they were manufacturing them at least until the 90s. And as I said, perhaps the Super Cub, not the Super Cruiser. I think the Super Cruiser was only around for like 46 through 49. Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So it looks very similar to me. So I made a mistake, so I tried to just bleep out every time I said Super Cub. What I should have done was, somebody or a few people kind of said, "Hey, why are you bleeping out, the Cub part of the name?" And none. So now you know why. I meant to record myself saying Cruiser and then just inserting it every time I said Super Cruiser, but I ran out of time because I had to get this thing published and start getting in the books and studying for this simulator torture, this delightful training event. Yes. Okay. So now that we've made a correction to my reference of the airplane that I flew with, it was a great time. Really enjoyed my flight with Armando. I guess that was a couple of weeks ago. So now I'm so relieved that training's over, and now I get to move on to regular line flying for the rest of my career, and waiting for my RV to be delivered. So I'm really looking forward to that. This weekend, after we record the show later today, I'll be singing at my church, and then again, probably, actually, I don't have to come in until about noon tomorrow, Liz, because Jane, our choir director, is in Florida, and so there's another group that's kind of doing the earlier masses that I normally sing at, so I get to sleep in. Yeah. So that's it for me. Back out on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday. So two-day trips next week. I'll be in Tallahassee on Tuesday having lunch with one of our APG community members who happens to be in our live audience right now, Ken Hayes. And anybody else out listening right now, if you're in the Tallahassee area, kind of try to contact. I'll try to remember to send out a tweet to tell you where we're having lunch, and you can come by and say hello. And then Dayton on Thursday, yes. So that's my week ahead, and yeah, so that's about it for me on the Getting to Know Us segment. And now let's talk about coffee.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the APG community. Coffee and tea, and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Oh yeah. Love that Java, that coffee. Coffee fun. There's some mugs, coffee mugs that I had made a while back. Yeah, it's your way to support the show financially if you have the resources to do so. A couple different ways to do it. One is the classic method, and since the last episode, we had a very generous donation from a Canadian, Stuart Thompson. Yes, you are a generous people, Liz. And he is in a different province than you. He's in the Alberta province, okay. And again, thank you, Stuart, for, I guess he was having some issues being a patron. I guess those Canadian banks are causing problems with Patreon or something. You don't like sending your money to stinking people in the U.S. Anyway, thank you, Stuart, for figuring out a way to send your stinking money to me. And another way to support the show is Patreon. And since the last episode, a new producer, Wesley Haynes, is a patron now of our show. So if you want to join Wesley and all the other great people out there who contributed to the show, please head over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did. We will too. Thanks. Okay, we got about a half an hour, Nick, before plane tail time. So we can knock out quite a bit, I think. You're muted.
I was just agreeing with you. That's a good idea.
Excellent. So did you placate the girls? Or the
yeah,
girls and boy?
Rusty's off her food because Mum's not home. Mum normally feeds the dogs, and she's just looking at it going, it's not right.
It's not the same.
Exactly. Not eating this.
It is the same, but it's not because,
I put it in her bowl instead of Mum.
Wrong server. Okay, well, let me play the feedback bumper. Here we go.
Captain, incoming message.
Okay, we're going to start with this feedback from AJ. Should I read his note to you, Liz, or no? Okay. So he sent a little love note to Liz, telling her what she loves you, AJ. She says, but I'm going to start with the thing for Captain Jeff. The beer is being introduced.
Well, it's definitely beer o'clock now. It's
okay,
past
beer
5.
o'clock. Okay, yeah. Cheers. All right. I'd have one with you as well, but I don't have any beer here. I got to go to the store.
No.
I know. Okay. Apropos of nothing else, Captain Jeff, I reside relatively close to Studio 1A, I believe. I'm about 45 seconds from Horsetown over near the dry seashell flatlands and the less than ankle-deep river crossing. And I'm going, what? Well,
Horsetown.
There's another show, another aviation podcast out there that uses all these obscure references to places and that nobody understands really. So he lives near Shallowford and Sandy Plains Road. I know where that is, actually. He says, sorry, I can't break the OB habit, the opposing bases, that show where they do all these crazy things. He said, would love to buy you a beer and or a burger or pick your brain about diving into the world of 121 or 135 flying. I'm thinking about a career change, only slightly compelled by a few friends on your side of the cockpit door and a few dogs as well. Uh-oh, must be somebody at
Sorry
your
about
door,
that.
Captain Nick. No problem. Let's see, a couple of which work for the Acme airline also. I'm an instrument-rated, what am I saying? I'm an instrument-rated private pilot now, but have an unmitigatable, help me out, Liz, you're not saying anything. Okay, wow. Maybe I should read these things before I do the show. Unmitigatable, that works, passion for aviation. And he has a great passion for aviation. And considering that leap into the pro circuit, wow. I'm not going to take that out either. All that is going to stay in. I'm not fixing it in post. He says, but I digress. I'm a new patron of the show, but one of the reverse ones. I know you all have done a great service over the past years.
What does a reverse patron take money out of the show, does he?
Oh, that's no good. How can you? I didn't know you could do that.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, give it back, please, AJ. Okay. I know you all have done a great service over the past years getting RH and AG up and started in the podcasting world, and I've gotten to know them
that was a
well
big
enough.
mistake.
I know. Little did we know what a huge mistake that would be. Let's see. And I've gotten to know them well enough that they recently invited me for a tour of the new tower at the mythical Triad. I highly recommend it if you can follow the breadcrumbs and find your way there. Way cool stuff to see. I've caught a long-haul case of OB syndrome, but I still have a few, read 300-ish episodes of APG to go, so I'm safe for another few days, at least on that score. Okay. I'm one of the reverse patrons because, he's going to explain this now. I'm one of the reverse patrons because I heard about and became interested in your show, mostly due to Captain Nick's artful and surgical verbal sniping. He says, ask Nick. He'll explain what sniping means. I know what sniping means.
Yeah, very good.
On the OB show, and I got hooked. I figured after all you've done for them, the least I could do would be to patronize your conglomerate to try to pay a little back in their honor. I've become absolutely enthralled with the old pilot's plain tales along the way.
What a lovely chap. Changed my mind. I like him.
Yeah, he's in the chat, Liz says.
Oh, wow. Brilliant.
Yeah. So basically what he's saying here is that he's not here for me or anybody else, but the plain tales. Okay.
It's all part of the same thing, isn't
Okay.
it? I mean, we're all one and all for one.
All for one and one for all, yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. I wanted to... The Six Stooges, Liz adds. I wanted to share a funny story that your crew might get a giggle from, or at least a mindful I've been there nod. This feedback was originally written for that other mythical show, meaning the names were changed to protect the guilty. So feel free to use the real names for airports and airspaces in brackets, or keep it a bit of a secret and see if your compatriots can ascertain their true location. Captain Nick might get a free pass on account of not being from around there. Insert a yeehaw here. Oh, I should have been ready for that.
Yeehaw!
Like us cowboys. Either way, I hope you will enjoy my own little plain tale entitled Hell of a Day to Fly. All right. And I do remember AJ, by the way, who is in our live. Why should Nick be reading this? Well, I don't know. Nick, would you? Liz is thinking.
I don't have an American accent.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, AJ, that
And I'm going to drink my beer.
I heard. Order! What was I saying? Oh, I heard this on Opposing Bases when you sent in this feedback to them. Much more than weeks ago, Liz. It was months ago, I think. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Hell of a day to fly. I thought you aviation aficionados might get a chuckle on possibly the worst first flying experience ever for not one friend, but two new to aviation, and a third on his second flight ever. And the best part is, it's all my fault. This is a two-part feedback because it's really two stories in one. Feel free to break it up or read it all as one and extend your show to 4 hours. I'm not sure we want to do that. We'll see how this goes. Part one, the non-emergency emergency. For a while, I've been talking about taking a few work friends up for their first flight in a GA aircraft, but finally made good on my threat a couple of months ago. We decided to go for a $100 hamburger at a neat little spot, and by little, I mean tiny, like 2,400-foot grass strip, Barnstormers Airfield, Peach State Aerodrome GA2. Okay, either of those, I have no idea where that is, with a great restaurant. One friend, we'll call him Juliet Echo, Justin E., met me at my home airport, Guntown Delta, which is McCullum Airport. That's up in Cobb County. I know where that is. On the north side of the rectangular Bravo, which is the Atlanta Bravo airspace. Our plan was to fly the Club 182 RG down to the Roundy Round Racetrack Airport, Terra Field, which is right next to the Atlanta Speedway, to the southeast of Atlanta, just south of the rectangular Bravo, pick up our other two friends, Mike Bravo and Charlie Foxtrot, then continue to Barnstormers Airfield, another 12 nautical miles south. We pre-flighted the airplane with J.E. asking seemingly unending questions about the airplane and aviation in general. He was very excited for his first flight, second ever flight, but first in a GA plane. It was a beautiful day with scattered clouds, plenty high enough for our short flight. We loaded up and went through all the pre-takeoff motions and ablutions. After takeoff and in the initial climb, I told him to watch out the window so he could see the wheel disappear as I retracted the gear. Normally in the 182 RG, that stands for retractable gear.
They fall off.
Yes, they do.
Oh, look, the wheels disappeared. Yeah, they're supposed to do that.
Normally in the 182 RG, when you flip the gear lever, you are rewarded with a whine from the hydraulic pump that concludes with a satisfying double thunk as the gear locks in the fully retracted position. On this day, however, the airplane was not in the mood to cooperate. I looked out my window as I flipped the gear lever up and was rewarded with crickets. No click, no whine, no satisfying ka-thunk. I went through a very brief malfunction check, cycling the gear lever one more time after confirming the appropriate circuit breaker was not tripped, but to no avail. I told Juliet Echo that I guess he won't get to see the wheel disappear. After briefly explaining the issue, he asked me, "What does that mean?" I responded, "It means we're going to land and take another airplane." I was reminded of episode OB 177.5, in which Bravo Foxtrot told his story of a partial power emergency landing in a field. His young passenger asked if landing in a field was normal. He answered his first-time passenger with, "Yes, of course it's normal," with other thoughts on his mind. I had a similar thought here. Make it seem like no big deal and pray I'm not lying. Laugh out loud. The light green gear down and locked light stayed illuminated, and I never saw the left main wheel move, but there's always that tiny doubt in the back of the mind that makes you wonder just how this landing will turn out. Just as my fingertip touched the push to talk on the yoke to inform the tower we would be returning, I heard Guntown Tower key up and tell us to switch to the tiny Air Force base, Dobbins Air Reserve Base, over there in Cobb County, to the Air Force Base tower to the south frequency, and wished us a good flight. I responded that we had a gear issue and would need to land. He immediately made room in the pattern for us, and as we approached midfield downwind, the tower told us that our gear appeared to be down and looked correct. I was surprised at the relief I felt when he said this. I didn't realize how concerned I was up to that point. We continued to an anticlimactic read normal, regardless of extra clenched muscles I didn't know I had, landing. Parked the airplane and transferred all of our stuff to our older Club 182, which has the gear down and welded. So it's not a retractable gear version. He said, I would love to hear y'all's response to my question below. Also, it was originally intended for the response from ATC's POV, hence written originally. Oh, point of view, thank you.
Point of view,
hence
yeah.
written originally for OB, but I would be happy to hear from some seasoned GA and 121 pilots as well. Well, you're not going to get any seasoned GA pilots to comment on it, AJ, because they're just to Part 121. And, well, Nick, I don't know if you're not even a Part 121 pilot, are you?
Well, I'm no kind of a pilot right now.
I know, but would you consider yourself when you were actively flying?
In my early years, yeah, of course. That's all I
true.
did. I worked at a light airfield and flew Cessnas.
Okay, cool.
So,
yeah.
You want to comment?
Well, his question says, should I have declared an emergency in this case? I feel like I got the point across and Tower knew the situation, but I would love to hear your thoughts. And I would like to start by saying I was taking off in a MD-88 from Atlanta International Airport one day, and I reached over to put the gear up, or was I flying? I guess I was flying, and I responded to my first officer's positive rate with gear up. He went to move the gear handle up, and I think the gear handle, I don't remember now if the gear handle came up and the gear didn't, or if the gear handle wouldn't come up at all. But anyway, the gear was stuck in the down and locked position. And if you're going to have a situation where the gear is stuck in one way or another, I think 99.9% of us would probably prefer the down and locked, the green light condition. And so for me, I told air traffic control that we wanted to, I guess it must have been the first officer's leg because I was talking on the radio. I said, hey, we're going to stay with you and we'd like to return for a landing because we're having a problem with our gear. And he said, would you like to declare an emergency? And I said, nope, there's no need to. We're in a normal situation. So we just want to get resequenced and get it back on the ground because we're going to burn a lot of gas if we continue our flight with the gear extended. And it's going to be noisy, and it would be frowned upon if we had done that. So we came back around, landed, and an emergency was not declared. What's your take on that, Captain Nick?
Well, I agree with you entirely, Jeff. And in this case, I don't think you would probably need to declare an emergency. If you've tried to raise the gear and it hasn't gone up, and you've put the lever back down again, and you've still got green lights indicating your gear is down and locked, I might even have said you'd be okay probably to complete your flight as if you just leave the gear down, complete your flight, go and get your burger, bring it back, and then say, by the way, I couldn't get the gear up after takeoff, so I left it down.
Would there be a significant difference in fuel burn and all that kind of stuff, or not?
Well, he's only on a short flight. These airports are only a few miles apart. But I think if you're uncertain, the best thing to do is to take it back to where it came from and where all the engineering facilities are. You don't really want to have a problem with that gear when you're on a strange airfield without any decent maintenance. So good, okay decision. Good decision to land back. And do you need to declare an emergency? Well, luckily in the United Kingdom or in Europe, we have the ability to put out a pan call. So this is the perfect situation really for a pan call, though there's no real threat to life in your situation, but you would like to get it on the ground as quickly as possible, perhaps, and have a little bit of priority. You want to concentrate on the approach, make sure it's nicely set up. You don't want to put any extra strain on the gear just in case something has unlocked and fail to properly engage again. So yeah, I would put out a pan call. In America, there only seems to be one kind of an emergency, and that's I'm declaring an emergency. So
yeah, and when I was in the Air Force, we had, I guess, an equivalent to pan. I don't know if they still do this or not, but we called it a precautionary.
Yeah, precautionary landing. Yes,
yeah.
we used to request the same sort of thing if we were chatting to ATC in the military. Yeah.
But since I've been in the Part 121 airline transport world, there's no mention of precautionary at all. It's just an emergency declaration or not. So, okay, Liz. Well, fine. I know she's saying that they do pans and emergency. I mean, and Maydays up there in Canada because they want to be. Because you want to be just like those people over there on the other side of the pond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So, yeah, AJ, we both agree that you did the right thing. And then part 2. Shall we continue with part 2, Liz? Okay. Why don't we, AJ, you get to be featured again on our next show. We're going to take your recommendation and save your part 2 for another episode. So thanks for sending it in. I'm glad you were here while we talked about this. Yeah, and next time you send in feedback, don't put those really hard to say words for me, like unmitigable. I can't say it. Okay, moving on. Feedback from Mazus. He says, if you're desperate, well, if anybody knows me, they know I'm desperate. Between you, there is a huge amount of aviation experience. What are your favorite aircraft that you've flown? And he says, I'm guessing the L-1011 for Captain Jeff. Yeah, I'd have to say that's my favorite. And also the best and worst airports that you've flown into around the world. I'm guessing Lagos might feature on one of your lists. What do you think, Nick? What's your favorite?
Yeah, Lagos probably.
That's your favorite?
Yeah, I'm definitely, I just love going to Lagos.
I've heard that.
Yes. Yeah. Another airport I liked going to was Kai Tak in Hong Kong, the old Hong Kong. But CLK, Chet Black Cock, the new one.
Excuse me?
Yes, I know.
Do what with my what? What?
Chet Black Check Lap Cock. There you go.
Okay.
Anyway, that was a nice airport. That was very modern, lovely airport. Everything worked, and it was just amongst a load of high hills, so you often got very bad turbulence. And of course, JFK was really my favorite because you never had any problems with air traffic and queues.
Oh, they're
to
so
take
nice
off.
there.
And, they're absolutely lovely. They're so
Especially the foreign
patient with
crews.
you, and yeah, so complimentary and civilized.
Make you feel right at home.
Absolutely. Used to love
Welcome
it.
to America.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's see. I really don't have a least favorite. Like, oh yeah, Toronto. I hate that place, mainly because of the people. Really. No, just kidding. Toronto is not Pearson is a nice airport to fly in and out of. But I can tell you that one of my favorite airports, and it has nothing to do with the terminal or the facilities or anything else. It's the approach that it's been years since I've flown it, and I miss it dearly. And it's one of my favorite aviation experiences of all. And that is our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. National Airport. And when they're landing to the south and it's a nice day, they do the river visual approach. And it's just the best opportunity for us airline transport drivers to actually feel like you're really flying. And when I say that, I mean not with your autopilot hooked up to the the thing that's built in the box to fly the contours or the whatever of the river all the way in. It's hand fly that darn thing and feel like you're really flying. And it's just a very short transition from coming in along the Potomac River to making a sharp right turn and aligning yourself with the runway and landing. And most places, if you tried to do something like that, you would have been called into the chief pilot's office and asked to explain yourself why you were flying such an unstabilized approach at the last minute. But because it's our nation's capital and we have those great congressmen, senators, and people in politics up there, they kind of look the other way and say, it's okay. It's not that.
This is the one where you fly down the river and you go twice round the Washington Monument and then you buzz the White House.
Yes, that's the one.
A quick wing over, a quick Jondelle, and scooch into the runway, yeah?
Yeah, no. They frown on that. They prefer you to just stay right over the top of that Potomac River and not make any of those little circling approaches
excursions.
around. Excursions,
Oh,
yeah.
What a shame.
But I guess, if it's your last flight, you're about to retire, I guess you could do that and hope that they don't
you don't
fire a
mind
missile
spending
at
the
you.
next 20 years in a federal penitentiary.
I hear they're very nice, and you get 3 meals a day. They have
Yeah,
like
they
a
do.
gym, workout facility. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on that. Well, we don't fly to DC anymore, on my airplane, on my fleet. Anyway, so I'm going to miss that. And the other approach that I really missed, and people would say that you must be on drugs or something. The airport, LaGuardia, a lot of people affectionately refer to it as LaGarbage. I miss flying into and out of, not necessarily the experience of actually being on the ground at this particular airport, but flying the expressway visual approach, and some of those departures were pretty interesting and required a lot of attention to detail, flying those routes and speeds and headings and everything else. But I've kind of missed that as well. It's been years since I've been to LaGuardia. But anyway, that's what I would say. And yes, the 1011 is probably my favorite airplane that I've ever flown, and in the airline world, and the 727 for sure. What a great jet that was. Nick, yourself, I guess the 340 would have to be your favorite.
Well, yeah.
In the airline world.
I did fly the 330, I guess, which was the twin engine variant, more or less. And I never did like flying with less than 4 engines. So, the 340 was particularly the 600 variant, which had more power than you could shake a stick at, and was bigger and mightier. So that was a lovely airplane.
And he says, on a completely different topic, I think most professionals have pet peeves about how their environment is portrayed on the big screen. Do you have particular aviation-themed movies that you love or hate? One that I'd particularly suggest not losing 92 minutes of your life on is Horizon Line, which I was duped into watching by a friend on a streaming platform that might be named for a river. Oh, maybe Nile? No. Mississippi? No.
Thames.
Thames? Yeah, maybe Amazon? Maybe that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, I'm sure
Okay.
he is.
Highlights include: a strange couple end up in a single-engine Cessna. Pilot dies. They fly through a storm. Guy has to climb out onto the wing mid-flight to sort out a fuel problem.
The dead guy? That's clever.
Well, I think he means the non-pilot that's still alive flies through a storm. But the thing that I really love about this is having to climb out onto the wing mid-flight to sort out a fuel problem. I mean, that's the way I normally sort out fuel problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure how it's going to do that, but there you go.
I don't either. But as Liz just mentioned, maybe they should have done that on that B-25 and they wouldn't have crashed into the field.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, he says, I can't tell you what happened after that because I think my brain gave up. So Yeah, thanks to Mazoots for the tip. We are not going to watch that movie. And he ends with Talons Douglas. Best wishes, Mazoots. Thank you, sir. Okay, one more than the plain tale from the control
we have
room.
to. Do we have a particular aviation themed movie we love or hate, Jeff?
Okay. We're moving away from this too quickly. I think my favorite aviation themed movie, and I think probably for many people, is of course Airplane, the movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, I know you guys love that. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like Blazing Saddles for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's full of American humor.
Oh, okay. In other words, not funny at all. Okay. What's your favorite?
It's a bit vaudeville. It's a bit.
What's your favorite British aviation theme movie?
My favorite would be the Dam Busters.
That's
probably
a good one.
They're at number one. I
didn't think it was that funny, though. Honestly.
No, that's true. No, it wasn't that funny. Yeah, particularly when all the guys keep blowing up.
I know.
That's very sad. What else? I had a couple going around in my head, and now I've forgotten them. That's a bit naughty, isn't it? I didn't like 633 Squadron because that was all made up. What else? Ice Station Zero. Do you remember that one? It wasn't an aviation theme, but it was really all about a submarine. But they were supposedly being attacked by Russian bombers, and they were all phantoms. Well, most of them were phantoms flying around in close formation as well. Oh God, what?
And those are Russian bombers?
Oh. Yeah, supposedly. Yeah, they just got some library footage of some phantoms, and I thought, cheapskates. That's terrible.
It's an airplane. Nobody will notice.
How could you do that? Yeah.
Sadly. Probably most of the people that watched it didn't have any idea that there was anything. No, you're
quite right. But they played the same clip, once or twice the right way around, and then they inverted the film and did it all the way around. That's right, Main Man Micah. That's exactly the one I was thinking of. 12 O'Clock High. What a fabulous movie. Ice Station Zero, yep. What a fabulous movie 12 O'Clock High was. I love that one. That was great.
I'd like to know. Mike Kuipers, I know it's going to take a while for him to respond to this, but he is an amazing old movie buff, and
he's an amazing old movie buff,
or an old movie buff. Both, actually. Yeah, well, I'm not saying, Liz, how he is attired when he watches movies, but
watches them in the buff.
That's what Liz is possibly suggesting. The control room is anyway. But what is your favorite aviation-themed movie? I'd really like to know the answer to that because he watches.
And reviews
them as well,
which is I love getting those because there are a bunch of movies I've never even heard of.
Yeah. What's the one that Airplane was mostly patterned after?
Airport.
No, it's a different one. Zero Hour or something like that. What is that?
Oh, okay. Sam says the Blue Max. That was brilliant. And there's a great story about the stunt pilot who flew under the bridge. And he didn't just fly under the big span. He had to do some passes under one of the narrow spans as well. And apparently he had to do it many times because the producer wanted to look realistic, and that as he flew under, a bunch of sheep behind in the back of the shot ran away. So they keep having to herd these sheep into place, and he would fly under and they'd release the sheep, and they either wouldn't run away or they ran away too soon, or things didn't work out. Anyway, he had to do it over and over and over again. He said the clearance was minute. He had to keep flying under this bridge. Yeah, but you're right. Blue Max was great. And the Great Waldo Pepper. There's some fantastic flying sequences in that one. That's brilliant.
Mike answered our question about what inspired the Airplane, the movie. 0 Hour is correct. But he's not told us what his favorite aviation-themed movie is. Come on, Mike. All right. We're going to, Control Room is directing us to do our plane tale. And
well,
yeah,
everyone
he can
thinks of their
still
best movie.
let us know. He's just taking his time. You know, it's an important question. He's thinking about it. And in the meantime, while Mike Kuipers is thinking about his favorite aviation movie, we're going to play the old pilot's plain tale. This week's episode, the Applegate Memorandum.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. The Applegate Memorandum.
The DC-10 was McDonnell Douglas's first commercial airliner project since the merger between McDonnell Aircraft Corporation and the Douglas Aircraft Company in 1967. It started life on the drawing boards as a 4-engined, double-decked, wide-body airliner that could carry 550 passengers, but morphed into a single-deck, 3-engined aircraft that could carry 1 passenger short of 400. In what was expected to be a knockout blow to the competing Lockheed L-1011, the president of American Airlines and James McDonnell of McDonnell Douglas announced American Airlines' intention to acquire the DC-10. With significant orders from American, United, and from other airlines around the world, its future looked good. The DC-10 featured advanced avionics, optimized aerodynamics, and delivered superior comfort for passengers and crew. Her operational capabilities filled an important niche, and in many ways the DC-10 revolutionized the airline flying model. The aircraft could operate routes never thought of as workable and reach destinations previously considered financially impractical. The developers of the DC-10 crafted its design to meet the demands of the industry, and its capabilities were never questioned. It was praised by pilots for its light handling and state-of-the-art guidance systems, and its engineers appreciated its ease of maintenance. Regulations of the time prevented twin-engined aircraft from crossing the big oceans, but efficient tri-jets could compete, particularly on those routes that didn't have the capacity to warrant a gas-guzzling 747. In a huge fanfare of publicity, the DC-10 first flew in late 1970. But even as the aviation press was greeting this new widebody onto the stage, an engineer, Dan Applegate, had grave concerns. Dan didn't work for McDonnell Douglas, but for Convair, a division of General Dynamics, one of the subcontractors brought aboard to aid in the design and construction of this mighty jet. He was Convair's Director of Product Engineering, and his concerns centered around the design of the cargo doors and the construction of the cabin floor that was the base of the passenger cabin and therefore the roof of the cargo compartments. The DC-10 had been designed with cargo doors that opened outwards, as inward opening doors, although inherently safer, required some unusable space within the hold to accommodate the door. As a result, the need for a fail-safe design of locking pins to secure the door was vital. The doors originally had hydraulic actuators to secure these pins, a proven design used in both the DC-8 and DC-9, but McDonnell Douglas decided to use electric actuators, which gave a 28-pound, 12.7 kilo weight saving per door. The change concerned the Convair engineers, since the hydraulic actuators would behave differently as cabin pressure built up behind the door. If a hydraulic latch wasn't secured properly, it would smoothly slide open with only a small increase of cabin pressure. Although an open door in flight might well rip off, this would occur at a low altitude and without a large decompression shock, allowing a safe landing. In contrast, if the proposed electric latch failed to engage properly, it could fail violently and most likely at a higher altitude where a rapid decompression could dangerously affect the aircraft's structure. Applegate's objections to the new door latch were rebuffed, but Convair was asked to draft a failure mode and effect analysis, a FEMA, for the cargo doors. The FEMA concluded that there were 9 possible failure sequences that could result in the destruction of the aircraft. There was a major problem with the door warning and locking pin system in that it could close and latch without being safely locked. The conclusion was that the door design was potentially dangerous and lacked a reliable fail-safe locking system. FAA regulations required it to be given FEMAs covering all systems critical to safety, but no mention was made of the door hazard prior to the certification of the DC-10. McDonnell Douglas subsequently stated that the door design was not implemented until all defects in the FEMA were removed. As the lead designer, McDonnell Douglas made itself entirely responsible for the certification of the aircraft, and they forbade Convair from reporting directly to the FAA. Then, in May 1970, during a model test run, the DC-10 blew its forward cargo door, causing the aircraft's cabin floor to collapse. This was a potential disaster, as the cabin floor contained conduits which carried vital electric and hydraulic systems up and down the length of the fuselage. McDonnell Douglas placed the blame on human failure, stating that the mechanic failed to correctly seal the door. The cure was to make design changes to enable better checks on the door locking pins. The FAA is charged with overseeing commercial products and regulating them in the public interest, but this is not often done independently. They appoint designated engineering representatives, DERs, to make inspections for them. These are company employees, chosen for their experience and integrity, who have the dual obligations of loyalty to their company and faithful performance of inspections. The manufacturers are therefore policing themselves, and it is generally acknowledged that conflicts of interest can arise. A number of internal memos were written citing design problems with the cargo doors and the new structural changes proposed. However, McDonnell Douglas and Convair quarrelled about who was at fault and the cost of changes, which resulted in none of them being implemented, and the aircraft went into service. Then came American Airlines Flight 96. The DC-10 was en route between Detroit and Buffalo when, above the city of Windsor in Ontario, whilst climbing through 11,750 feet, the flight crew heard a distinct thud, and dirt and debris flew up from the cockpit floor into their faces. The aircraft depressurized, and at the same time the rudder pedals deflected full right, whilst the throttles moved to idle. Captain Bryce McCormick immediately took control and attempted to reapply power, but only the wing engines, numbers 1 and 3, would respond. The number 2 engine had failed. Other control problems presented themselves. They only had control of the right elevator, and that was restricted, but they could still use their ailerons and move the horizontal stabilator. They diverted their crippled aircraft back to Detroit, but when they configured the flaps, their rate of descent was far too high to land safely. Increasing speed allowed a more normal approach, but on touchdown, the DC-10 veered right and left the runway. First Officer Whitney did an excellent job by applying full thrust reverse on the left engine and idle thrust to the right, which straightened the machine up and returned it to the landing strip. They stopped only 880 feet from the end of the runway. On inspection, it was obvious that the rear cargo door had detached from the aircraft. 3 months earlier, handlers had reported that the same door had not latched electrically and had to be closed manually. 3 other operators had reported similar failures, and McDonnell Douglas issued a service bulletin to upgrade the latch wiring, but it wasn't compulsory and hadn't been performed on this aircraft. On the flight in question, the cargo loader closed the door electrically, and when the motors stopped whirring, he tried to operate the locking handle, but found it difficult to close without putting his knee on it. The door looked slightly ajar, but with the locking handle in place and the cockpit warning light extinguished, the engineer permitted the aircraft to fly. The investigation showed that the latches had failed to close because the wiring couldn't carry the required load to the electric motors. In addition, the locking pin system was too weak, allowing the handle to be forced closed with the locking pins out of their locking holes. In addition, the vents that allow pressure to escape safely around the cabin floor into the cargo area during a decompression were inadequate, which is why the floor partially collapsed, leading to the engine and control failures. The NTSB recommended changes to the door locking mechanism and vents for the rear cabin floor. However, the FAA failed to issue an airworthiness directive, instead of which they reached what has been termed as a gentleman's agreement with McDonnell Douglas to make changes to the door design. The FAA administrator had taken the unusual action of becoming personally involved in the problem, thereby short-circuiting the AD issuance. He had spoken with the president of the Douglas division of McDonnell Douglas, and the 2 men had agreed that the situation didn't require a far-reaching AD, since they had a great working relationship. The FAA agreed with McDonnell Douglas that additional venting would be difficult to install, and they only modified the locking system of the door by adding a small clear window to the bottom of the cargo door to allow a visual inspection of the locking pins. It was at this point that Dan Applegate wrote a comprehensive memorandum laying out the problems with the door and the cabin floor designs and making his concerns clear. In particular, he noted that the actuator system had been switched from a hydraulic system to an electric one, which he felt was less safe. He noted that the floor would be prone to failure if the door was lost, and this would likely sever the control cables, leading to a loss of the aircraft. Finally, he pointed out that this precise failure had already occurred in ground testing in 1970. He concluded by saying,
"The potential for long-term Convair liability has been causing me increasing concern for several reasons. The fundamental safety of the cargo door latching system has been progressively degraded since the program began in 1968. The airplane demonstrated an inherent susceptibility to catastrophic failure when exposed to explosive decompression of the cargo compartments in 1970 ground tests. Since Murphy's Law being what it is, cargo doors will come open sometime during the 20-plus years of use ahead for the DC-10. I would expect this to usually result in the loss of the aircraft."
The Applegate memorandum got as far as his immediate supervisor, but no further. Management believed that his proposed changes would be costly to implement, and there was a debate as to who would end up paying for them, Convair or McDonnell Douglas. In addition, Applegate's contract prevented him from sending his memorandum directly to the FAA. However, it didn't take 20 years for Dan Applegate's concerns to be realized. Only 2. On the 3rd of March 1974, Turkish Airlines Flight 981 was climbing out of Paris Orly Airport, an intermediate stop on its flight from Istanbul to London Heathrow. The aircraft was passing 12,000 feet when the rear cargo door burst open and was torn from its hinges, falling away from the airliner. The sudden difference in pressure between the cargo hold, now open to atmosphere, and the cabin above was about 5 psi, 0.34 of a bar, which caused part of the cabin floor to collapse, separate, and be forcibly ejected through the now open hatch. Along with the floor went 6 occupied passenger seats attached to that section of the floor. The fully recognizable bodies of the 6 Japanese passengers who were ejected were eventually found in a turnip field, having fallen over 2 miles to reach the earth. The loss of flight controls that the Turkish flight crew had to deal with was considerably more severe than in the American Airlines incident. When the door blew off, the primary as well as both sets of backup control cables that ran through that section of floor were completely severed, destroying the pilot's ability to control the DC-10. The aircraft almost immediately attained a 20-degree pitch down and began to rapidly accelerate whilst the crew struggled to regain control. At some point, one of the crew members pressed their radio transmit switch, broadcasting the panic in the cockpit as they fought to raise the aircraft's nose. It took 77 seconds for the flight to terminate, when the airliner ploughed into a forest at high speed, killing all the remaining passengers and crew on board. The aircraft disintegrated into thousands of pieces, and of the 346 souls on board, only 188 were identifiable, with rescue teams having the grisly task of recovering some 20,000 body fragments. It was, at the time, the worst single aircraft disaster in aviation history. The Flight 981 aircraft had been ordered from McDonnell Douglas 3 months after the service bulletin to alter the cargo door was issued, and was delivered to Turkish Airlines 3 months later. Despite this, the changes required by the service bulletin preventing the bending of the linkage seen in the Flight 96 incident had not been implemented. Through either oversight or deliberate fraud, the manufacturer construction logs showed that this work had been carried out. In addition, an improper adjustment had later been made to the locking pin mechanism. It had been filed down, reducing the locking pin travel. This meant that the pins did not extend past the torque tube flanges. After Flight 96, the design changes included the small window that allowed baggage handlers to visually inspect the pins to confirm that they were in the correct position. In addition, there were information placards to show the correct and incorrect positions of the pins. This modification had been applied to Flight 981's aircraft. However, the cargo handler had not been instructed about the purpose of the indicator window. Furthermore, the instructions on the door regarding the indicator window were printed in English and Turkish. But the Algerian-born handler, who was fluent in 3 other languages, could read neither of these. McDonnell Douglas subsequently faced multiple lawsuits for the crash of Flight 981 by the families of the victims and others. In its defense, during pre-trial proceedings, McDonnell Douglas attempted to blame the FAA for not issuing an airworthiness directive, Turkish Airlines for modification of the cargo door locking pins, and General Dynamics for an incorrect cargo door design. when it became clear that its defences were unlikely to prevent a finding of liability, McDonnell Douglas, Turkish Airlines, and other associated parties settled out of court for an estimated $100 million, the equivalent of more than $500 million in today's money. After the crash of Flight 981, the latching system was completely redesigned to prevent it from moving into the wrong position. The locking system was mechanically upgraded to stop the handle from being forced into the closed position, and the FAA ordered further changes to all aircraft with outward opening doors, including the Lockheed L-1011 and Boeing 747. These changes also required vents to be cut into the cabin floor to allow pressures to equalize in the event of a blown-out door, thus preventing a catastrophic collapse of the aircraft's cabin floor and other structures that could damage an aircraft's vital systems.
Wow.
I have to reappear. Sorry, Jeff.
Me too. My camera was off as well.
I was just full of the memories of writing that and discovering all the little shenanigans that have been going on behind the scenes concerning this. And of course, it's such a well-known story that we've got lots of very apt comments in the chat room, particularly about the competition to get the DC-10 out before the L-1011. The first kid on the block is always the first one to get all the, kudos. My man Mike is quite right. There was a race to get the DC-10 out first. They had to work very hard on their development to do that. So they were, although it wasn't apparent from my research, they were working very hard to, cut corners.
Well, it's a good thing that kind of oversight and relationship with the FAA and manufacturers doesn't happen anymore since that DC-10 thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We learned our lesson there. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, right. Okay. It has reared its ugly head much more recently. But it's one of those things, the FAA is a government institution, and in order to empower them with the ability to recruit and put in position a sufficient number of highly trained engineers in all the aircraft manufacturers to prevent this would require big government, and that's not something that tends to be popular in your fine country.
This is true.
It's true.
It's true.
It's difficult, and you want oversight, but in order to do that, you have to pay for it, and that's expensive. Yep. The thing that gets me, though, is that there obviously was a man there who understood exactly what the problems were, and he realized that from their own tests that the collapse of the floor that separated the cabin from the cargo hold would be catastrophic to the aircraft. Interestingly, on the 747, all those control runs and vital lines go down the ceiling of the cabin, so there is no danger of the same sort of problem happening, even though the FAA said, right, from now on we've got to insist that the door locking mechanisms are sufficiently robust and that cabin floors have ventilation to prevent the collapse of the floor. That is great that enough was learned from the accident to make that sacrosanct requirement. You do wonder why they didn't think it was important at the time. The mere fact that 6 passengers disappeared out through that cargo hold, you think that would be sufficient for it to happen. But the fact that the collapse of the floor also caused the destruction of the aircraft, the entire aircraft, you think, well, heaven's sake.
Yeah. Very sobering for sure. Well, thank you for covering that history, Captain Nick.
Yeah, that was an interesting one for me. I sort of enjoyed doing it. I never really enjoyed doing accidents, but I do find the skill of the investigators and the reports and doing a little bit of investigation myself to be very satisfying. So, yeah, I appreciate that.
Excellent. All right, we have a little over a half an hour remaining for us to get. Okay, yeah, right. Sure, Liz. Yeah, we're not going to get through all this feedback, but we'll do our best.
Speak faster, Jeff.
Okay, I'll talk faster. We're not going to do that. We're gonna do this right. Let's do 5 feedback from Kevin. He says, "Greetings, APG crew. I just came across this short article regarding a suspected unapproved part, now a confirmed unapproved part, that failed, causing the unfortunate death of a pilot. The manufacturer of a defective main rotor component linked to the 2021 fatal crash of a Bell 212 in Canada has agreed to settle a related civil suit for $10 million. 4 Aero of Haltom City, Texas, manufactured the main rotor hub strap retaining pin on the first blade assembly of the accident helicopter. The pin failed after only 20 hours time in service. Ooh, that's not much. Causing the entire main rotor assembly to separate from the helicopter in flight, killing the pilot, who was the sole occupant. An investigation by Canada's Transportation Safety Board found that the pin was made from weaker steel than specified by the helicopter's OEM, and that resulted in the catastrophic failure of the main rotor assembly, according to Dallas aviation attorney Ladd Sanger, who served as co-counsel in the suit filed on behalf of the pilot's family. The accident helicopter was a 1979 Bell 212 owned and operated by Yellowhead Helicopters and was being flown on a fire suppression support mission, transporting fire crews near Evansburg, Alberta. The crash triggered an emergency grounding, inspection, and pin replacement, impacting 400 Bell 204, 205, and 212 models worldwide. The defective shear pin and the lack of quality control in the manufacturing process resulted in the death of a very experienced pilot and family member under routing flying conditions. I guess that means routine, right? Under routine flying conditions, said Sanger. The tragedy should have never happened. And he gave us a link to the AINonline.com site where you can read more about the settlement. And he says, keep the blue side up unless your aircraft is blue on the bottom. Keep the blue side down in that case. Yeah, I guess.
Good.
Yeah, I guess that would mean my airplane. The bottom of my airplane is blue, so I'll keep that side down.
But bottom of your airplane looks more like the ocean.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
Well, it just makes me realize that my prejudice against helicopters is
more justified.
Yeah, it's based on on fact, not fiction.
Yeah, but of course, if they had used the proper steel and manufactured it correctly, perhaps this wouldn't have been a tragedy.
Very true, absolutely. But then again, you still have to learn how to rub your tummy and pat your head.
That is true.
At the same time, don't you?
Which is
kick
difficult.
your feet backwards and forwards.
Oh, it looks like you can fly a helicopter. All right.
Actually, I've tried.
Have you?
Yeah.
A real one?
I got an hour or two in a Wessex, flying around, and once you get going, it's just like a proper airplane. It's in the hover that the interest happens, and I was doing all right until he turned off the the stability
Autopilot.
augmentation system. And then I started careering around the airfield like an out of control bumper car. But there you go.
Oh my!
Is that what you call them in the States?
Yeah.
In a fairground, a bumper car.
Yeah, that's what we call them.
That's what I was.
All right. Number 6 from Tim Van Ram. He said this. It's basically a picture, a graphic. And it says, the higher in rank you go, the uglier the car you drive. And this was taken from an Air Force airman, non-commissioned officer, senior non-commissioned officer, Twitter post, I guess, or Instagram. I don't know which it is, but it doesn't matter. So the what does it say? The boot E1 through E3. Oh, in other words, right at the beginning when you start off with boot camp, and then you're an E1 through E3. They have that nice, looks like a Mustang, right? A Ford Mustang, and then when you get into the E4 through E6 ranks, you are in a nice Toyota pickup truck, and then now we're seeing a significant change in the quality and age of the vehicles. E7 through E9, you're getting pretty far up there in the non-commissioned officer ranks, and now I don't even know what that is. What kind of car is that? Is that an old Toyota Cressida?
No
or
idea.
something? Or
I'm not very good with American cars.
It's a sedan. I think that might be a Japanese car, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and but it's an old one, and because the more rank you have, the uglier your car.
I reckon it probably is. The more rank you have, the more children you have, and that's why you can only afford
your
a cheap
priorities
car.
change in your life.
Look, the CEO there, he's got a people carrier, an ancient old one.
Thanks, Liz. I've driven a more modern version of this Chrysler minivan. Commanding officer driving with it even has the nice wood treatment to the side, wood paneling on the side. Yeah, I used to drive a loser cruiser. Yes, you're right, Liz, and I was proud of it. Yeah. Okay. Very funny, Tim, but true actually. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Robert writes, how is turbulence info shared? He said, my flight home today encountered some clear air turbulence at cruise altitude, and the pilot came on the PA to apologize, saying there were no other reports in the area, which got me to thinking, are most turbulence reports made verbally over the radio by pilots? I found the site below that I sometimes check, but I wasn't sure exactly how the data is collected. Okay, so I need to share this tab. That's what I have written to myself. Share this tab, Jeff. Okay, I'm going to do this first, Liz, the sharing of this web page that he said he likes to check. Put that up there. Okay, this website is turbulenceforecast.com. And on it, you can see a map of potential turbulence areas. And then you can also, another view shows you pilot reports. And right now, looking at the pilot reports of turbulence in the region. This is the entire United States. And you can see the green is like maybe some light turbulence, and the orange is moderate. If you see any red symbols on here, that we're talking about severe turbulence. And also has around the Great Lakes. Yeah, there's a report over there, not too far from where you are, Liz, right? Just Lake Erie-ish area. A lot of hot air, you say? Okay.
Lake Erie-ish?
Yeah, Erie.
I've never heard of that lake.
Well, there's Lake Erie in the Lake Erie-ish area. I made up the word. Okay, but I like ish. I like to add ish to a lot of things. Here's are
there any heights related to this?
Well, there's one right here now. I've scrolled down to Actually, yeah, in this map, they do have the altitudes where the turbulence had.
Well, I'm wondering,
been reported.
who logs those? Because do
Well,
the air
if you-
traffickers have a system?
Yeah,
we
so-
certainly don't do it.
Well, if we say to air traffic control, PIREP, and we're getting, severe turbulence or PIREP is PIREP, that stands for pilot report, because we love acronyms in aviation. And so a PIREP is a pilot report. And when you now, if we just go up there and they ask, or we tell them that we're getting moderate or it's light turbulence, we'd like to change altitudes or whatever, that's not a requirement for them to do anything except just keep that information so that if anybody else asks, they'll have that information available. If you preface it or at the end of it say PIREP, I think preface is the best way to do it. Hey, we have a PIREP. Okay, that's the magic word. Now that means that whatever we're going to tell them, they have to make some kind of a report and log of.
That's
of
why there
that.
are so few.
Yes,
Considering
exactly.
the thousands of airplanes.
Right. So it has to be pretty significant, really, I think, for them to actually show up here on this thing and for them to make a report. So you just assume that all those areas where you don't see those little symbols, everything is probably just light.
Who would
or something.
make a PIREP of light turbulence?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I've never made a PIREP. It's got to be something pretty significant for me to say PIREP. We also say PIREP if we have like a wind shear encounter. And Sam has an interesting comment. Let me go to that. Called SkyPath. Sensors in our EFBs detect I didn't know they had that technology in your EFB. Detect turbulence and upload it automatically via Wi-Fi. Other airplanes on SkyPath see it immediately. I even get audio warnings of turbulence on my route. Well, I'll show you what
I would
we
love to
use.
hear those audio warnings. So they go, ah, ah, ah.
That's a severe warning right there. Thank you, Nick. That sounded exactly like what you would hear. Okay, so we have this website, has these things, and it's getting some of the data from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Did I get that right? I think that's right. Okay, so I'm going to stop screen sharing there, and then I'm going to show you, or Liz is going to show you, that first screen. This is from my EFB, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't have any capability of actually recording turbulent conditions from its device, from the device itself, and sending it in. So it's a little bit. Sam's airline has a little bit fancier system, but this is something that we use at Acme, and it's a weather app. And in this display, it still has the route from my last flown flight from Gulfport, Biloxi International to Atlanta a few days back. And in this view, I've selected the little icon that shows a little seatbelt right below the Wi-Fi on the left side there. And that's showing the turbulence at that particular level. And in this case, I think it was basically surface. Shows some, but you can move the altitude on the right side. You can see there's a way for you to put your altitude in there, and then as you move through different altitudes, the color areas change, and you can kind of get an idea of where the turbulence might be in that box. That actually it's kind of a diamond shaped polygon that I clicked on and revealed the information about this turbulence plot. Talks about an advisory about, I can't read it now, but says something about turbulence, light to moderate turbulence, and it kind of gives you an altitude range, flight level 330 to 390, I think. Yeah. And then usually they'll put in there, like this one here, it says source, PIREPs. So based on pilot reports, they identified this area that, you don't want to be flying through there probably between 330 and 390 because it might be a little bit bumpy. That area below on the bottom part of the screen is a vertical view of the different altitudes and turbulence levels. So this is a very handy tool because you can see on the left, Gulfport is where we left and Atlanta is our destination. And you can see the areas that are green. In this case, the worst turbulence to expect based on this tool is maybe light. Really, it's all green, maybe a little bit darker green. I don't remember getting any turbulence at all on that flight. And then you show the next screen. There are different ways you can use this tool. In this case, I've selected the little cloud or the satellite view, and I brought it back because the area that we were looking at before really didn't have much satellite imagery. But in the western portion of the United States, and I took this just a couple of hours ago. I just did a screenshot out there in the mountain west, I guess you call it. There was some activity, some satellite returns, and then I clicked on the thing again, which shows a convective potential. So the area that shows some green in that satellite box right there on the left side shows that there's potential that could grow into thunderstorm activity. And then the other view is the one where we can show NEXRAD radar imagery as well. So it kind of gives you that. This is something that we until recently haven't had in the airplane, a bird's eye view of actual radar data in real time. And it's very helpful to have.
It was quite often that the passengers could pull up information websites that had better information than we did.
Right.
At the front.
And finally, I guess after complaining about it enough, the manager said, you know what, maybe we should give them the ability to tap into that Wi-Fi and get some real-time information for route planning.
No, it was a boon when it was just kicking in when I retired, and it was an absolute boon to be able to predict ahead and see it change as more people reported it, or the weather forecast changed every few hours. And because pilot reports are great, but not every pilot's well calibrated to report the correct amount of turbulence, and of course it only affects him at his altitude. I think the ideal one was if you were following someone, say 100 miles ahead in clear air with no expected turbulence, and he suddenly came up and said, wow, I've just encountered moderate to severe clear air turbulence, something you would have no idea was there. You could hit your stopwatch and go, right, well, it's going to take me, 12 minutes to get there. I'm going to put the seatbelt signs on now and let the crew sort the aircraft out and secure everything, because it's going to get a bit rough. And that was ideal. So, but that sort of power was vital. The other ones for light turbulence things, you'd think, well, that's a waste of time.
Yeah. So sorry, Robert was asking us, how do we get our information? And we talked about some of these tools that we have. Sam shared what they use at his airline. I showed you our tool, our app on our EFB. And iHaul Boxes has another tool that I have not heard of. When my phone rings right after my flight and I see it's my wife, I know that there's turbulence up ahead. Yeah, that's a different kind of turbulence.
Yeah.
But getting the reports in real time from other pilots reporting to air traffic control is probably the most accurate way to get real-time information.
Yeah. Particularly if you know the guys on your track and is 50 miles ahead at your height, then it's going to be pretty damned accurate. And what he's feeling, you're going to be feeling in 10 minutes.
And and the whole point of this is to provide as good a ride as possible for our passengers and our flight attendants, or as Captain Nick just mentioned, they're up. They're not in their seats with their seatbelt fastened. They're up. And us too, but we're always up there in our seats with our seatbelts fastened, so we're okay. But it's the flight attendants that you really and passengers, if you're flying along and you don't think you're going to be encountering turbulence, so you have the seatbelt light off and everything else. So it's very important to know this information, and that's why people sometimes, make fun of certain airlines that may give reports about, but it's important. That's important. I know. Okay, I get it. You guys think that we ask about or report it too much, but it's I think an essential thing to do, and you guys are just jealous because you don't fly for Acme. Anyway,
that's true, but Acme have a reputation.
I know, and again, I don't know exactly because it doesn't seem to me that we do it any more or less.
No, you don't.
Than anybody else.
I don't think you do. I just think it's people having a dig.
And what's funny about it is. What's so funny? Yeah. So what's so funny about it to me is when I started out back in the late '80s and all throughout the '90s, the airline that we always made fun of for doing the same thing was American Airlines, and then somehow it just shifted to Delta. Oh,
Acme.
Darn! Yeah, Acme. Let me make a little mark here in the. How do I do that? Yeah. Okay. Need to edit that. Anyway, what was the other thing that was supposed to address, Sam? Oh, some aircraft have sensors that send info to NOAA on turbulence as well that we can see on our weather maps. I think it's called, I'm not sure what it's called, Sam, but yes, we can, that was another thing I should have done. There are several different views that we can pull up on this thing, but we can actually show airplanes that have these systems that are built-in accelerometers built into their airplanes, mostly the newer 737s and the newer Airbuses, and the narrow bodies like the 320s and 321s. And we can actually see, what kind of airplane it is, and it shows exactly what the EDR is, I think. And I don't ask me what EDR stands for, like eddy dissipation rate, maybe? Ooh, I may have gotten that right. The eddy, like the little ripples
it's the equidistance ratio.
Or that, but I don't think that has anything to do with turbulence. Or it could be strong intestinal turbulence after stopping for lunch at Taco Bell. I'm not sure that would affect those sensors or not.
Yeah.
It could be. Thank you, Tim, though, for the suggestion.
Robert mentions asks why some pilots are more aggressive and how they seek smoother levels. For me, not at all, because, when you're flying a 14-hour flight, you are really trying to hit your optimum flight levels and hold them, because it was essential if you were going to actually get to your destination that you didn't spend extended periods either too high or too low, because your fuel consumption obviously is worse. And reserves are cut down to such a minimum that you might not make your destination if you do it too long. And often on the routes, the long haul routes, all the aircraft going to the same destination are on the same route. And once you give up your optimum flight level, some other so-and-so is going to climb into it. And when you try and get back up to that flight level, oh, no, you can't. It's occupied now. Mm-hmm. So, we would quite often just have to go, we're going to have to grin and bear this, because I know there's some damn 747 that's been asking for our flight level. And as soon as I go down, he's going to go up and we'll never get there again. So you had to think tactically, because not just, this is going to be 10 minutes of discomfort for the passengers, but then we might end up diverting because we can't get our optimal flight level back.
Is it really always the Boeings that do that, though?
Yeah, they're horrible.
Okay.
They cruised faster than us. So if there was a Boeing behind us wanting our flight level, they knew they'd have to often get way ahead of us before they could climb.
No.
And if we descended, then they'd immediately pop up to our flight level and accelerate over the top of us. And then they just sat there. They wouldn't keep on going ahead. So that in a couple of hours, they'd just slow down. You'd see them do it deliberately. They're such so-and-sos, those Boeing pilots. I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them.
Those cowboys.
Horrible people.
Yeah, they're horrible people.
Absolutely.
10 minutes, Liz's control room is calling out. But before we move on, EDR is Eddy, EDDY, dissipation rate. So that was pretty close. Or
Oh,
did I
that
hit
was
it?
from
Oh.
one of Thomas Edison's inventions, wasn't it?
No.
You sure?
No.
Oh.
Oh, it has something to do with Eddie Van Halen, according to Liz.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Okay. I don't know if that helped it or not, Robert, but yeah.
Oh, I love it.
It worked, I guess.
Good.
Shall we do 8?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. This is from Aaron and also sent in by Richard Nash and First Officer Rico. Hi, APG crew. And this is from Aaron. I always enjoyed your show. I've been listening to you for years, and you've managed to keep it interesting and fun, but not educational. No, he didn't. I added that part. Every so often, you discuss the NOTAMs and how useful they are, or how useful they are. So, of course, when I ran across this video, I immediately thought about sending it to you. I hope you like it. NOTAMs, the majestic endangered species. Blue skies and all the good flying stuff for you, Aaron. Now, this group, organization called Ops Group, OPSGROUP, and I get periodic emails from them. It's kind of expensive to join their organization, and it doesn't make sense for an individual like me to spend that much money on it. But I do really do appreciate the I think it's once a month, they send out an email with some really interesting stuff on it. And a couple of years ago, they sent out one, and they basically said, hey, we've published this, our guide, a field guide to NOTAMs, what used to be called Notices to Airmen, and now Notice to Air Missions. And it's very, very funny. I'll have a link to this in the show notes. You gotta download it and read it. It's very, very funny. So funny, in fact, I guess another couple of groups decided that they would kind of make a video version of the field guide to NOTAMs that the Ops group came up with. And I'm finding the video right now, and I'll play that here shortly. But it is very, very funny. I highly recommend. If you don't look at the PDF field guide to NOTAMs, at least watch this video, because it is hilarious. And I'll play just a little bit of it. I don't have permission to play it, and I don't want to get anybody upset with me or sue us. But let's just play a little teaser just to kind of show you that you really do need to watch this yourself. So here we go.
For a century, a wild creature has roamed the skies, untroubled, unchanged, and unchallenged. This magnificent species is known as the NOTAM, and its life purpose is to provide pilots essential real-time safety information. The NOTAM has thrived in our aviation ecosystem, untouched by the technological advancements that have claimed the lives of other primitive forms of communication, such as Morse code, telegram, and Lorentz sea navigation. But the recent collapse of this creature's ecosystem is a grave reminder of its fragile habitat. On any given flight, an aviator may encounter hundreds of NOTAMs, and thus identification and classification become of paramount importance. So let us embrace this opportunity to study and cherish this remarkable creature while it still thrives. With this field guide, embark on your own journey of discovery, uncovering the many varieties of NOTAMs that still exist in the wild. Some specimens may appear benign, but can be poisonous, sometimes fatal. The clock is ticking. The era of the NOTAM as we know it is quickly coming to a close.
We hope. All right, so that's the intro, and that was just
That's great. Oh, I've been there.
Oh, is that?
That's in Tokyo. That's the Shibuya crossing. There's a Starbucks up on to your left. I've sat in that Starbucks and drank coffee and looked out on that crossing.
If you look closely, you can actually see a picture of you. I can see that.
Almost. You can
Holding
almost
that
see me in
Starbucks
the
cup.
window, just above that Sutea store.
That's 1 minute and 28 seconds of, what's the total here? It looks like about a little over 7 minutes long. So it won't take much of your time. And trust me, you will
giggle.
Find it, time well spent. Thumbs up from Captain Nick and Captain
Absolutely,
Jeff.
yes.
There we go.
Anywhere that has, I think it's called the Shibuya crossing. Anyway, it's a famous sort of 5-way pedestrian crossing in
5-way.
Tokyo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to be it, I think.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Yeah.
I haven't finished my beer yet.
Well, we can talk after we end the show, and you can. Okay. Let's do the jetpack guy, number 9.
Oh,
because,
yeah, absolutely.
Because we keep we received this quite some time ago. We keep pushing it on to the next thing. So, this is from Matt. He said, "Hello, APG crew, Mike Romeo, here from the. I guess that's.
I thought he was called Matt.
It is Matt. Oh, it's another opposing bases guy.
Oh, God. You know, we're not their trash can for useless
apparently
feedback.
we are. So he says, Mike Romeo here from the Frozen North Center. I learned about this great podcast from another aviation-themed show starring some odd guys, known only by their initials, from a place only known as the Mythical Triad. Of course, he's talking about... I can't remember. Arhag, that's what I'd like to call them. Arhag. I stumbled across this image attached while on Reddit a while back. Okay, and so we're talking about the image, and it was like a single image from Reddit that I had to kind of break down into separate images so we could see what's going on here. He said, put the first one up. He says, I saw this image on Reddit and wondered if it might be the source of the mysterious jetpack guy from the Los Angeles basin. Haven't heard much about them recently, unless, of course, I'm late to the program and this has been sussed out already. No, we haven't sussed it out yet. A few shows ago, there was a discussion about having landing gear down for a ditching and how that doesn't tear up the airframe as bad as versus. Oh, okay. We're on a different subject there, aren't we? Okay, so let's we'll return to his feedback here after we look at some of these pictures. So we're looking at, I don't know, it looks like dead people face down in the in the field. Oh, a little propeller at the front. Okay.
Yeah, they've some sort of
remote control
box at the front.
Okay. There's a
radio
controller.
Controlled, yeah.
Yeah, radio control. Okay. And
oh my God,
launchers.
That's New York.
Yeah, it is. They're
launching
these things.
People into the air.
Uh-huh.
And they're flying around. They look like people flying. They look like Superman.
Yeah,
Supermen.
exactly. Superheroes that fly.
Super ladies even.
Or look at them.
Oh my
They're
God.
just flying around. You know what?
These are radio controlled flying people.
Yes, they are.
Wow.
So that's what he was looking at. I get, it's possible that may have been what was happening
exactly,
in the LA Basin. For sure.
I mean, if it's one's flashing past the cockpit, which is what has been occurring, these have been spotted by people on the approach to LAX, and you don't get long to spot them. They're there and gone in less than a second. So something like that could really look like a real person.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see it. Some of these photos or images. Yeah, like that one, Liz, thanks. You look up and you think, there are people flying up there. Wow, what is going on?
Well, you'd assume they had a jetpack on, because how else could they be flying up there?
Right.
I mean, they're not actual superheroes.
They could be angels. Just saying.
They could be. They haven't got any wings, Jeff. The angels have wings. Big wings.
That's true. Okay. Well, maybe they're transparent. Anyway. All right. So Matt Reed continues. A few shows ago, there was a discussion about having landing gear down for a ditching and how that doesn't tear up the airframe as badly versus gear up. I wonder if that's a holdover from tail wheel days, DC3, where gear down would almost certainly result in a nose over. So the training of the day was to leave gear up. Thus, like so many things in aviation, it has become, that's the way we've always done it. And we have done it that way ever since. Yeah, that could be.
Well, it's possible, except that I tend to give the aircraft manufacturers more credit, because every time they design an airplane, they look at worst case scenarios and examine how the aircraft they've designed will behave in a ditching, for example.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're really going to let their possible experience, designing tailwheel airplanes to influence how they would give advice for modern airliners, particularly for companies like Airbus, who've never designed a tailwheel airplane.
True.
So not sure about that, but it's an interesting thought, that's for sure.
Interesting thought for sure. And he says, anyway, great show, great crew, great banter. You cover news and events in an interesting and enjoyable fashion, and the post-production work is phenomenal. Editing of chapters, etc. Keep it up.
Someone who notices chapters.
I know. Thank you so much.
Wow. We've got a listener who because I do it every time for Plain Tales, and I wonder, why the hell am I doing this? Does anyone ever see
No, you're doing it to make it easier on me when I have to take your chapter.
Like I want to do that. Oh.
I know. But, it is an enhancement that we like to do because we love you all out there. So
we like to give you the best possible product we can.
That's true. And so thank you, Matt, for mentioning that. We do appreciate it. And it says, Matt Reed, Minneapolis Center ATC is an air traffic controller, and he's a certified flight instructor, commercial, single-engine land, single-engine sea, and multi-engine land ratings.
So if he's got single-engine sea, does that mean he can't land on a lake?
I don't know. You'll have to ask Matt.
Yeah.
And he's also an AMP and an EIEIO.
I love it.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, while we're thanking guys, can I forgot to mention after the Plain Tale, Greg Willits, who did the little voiceover section inside the last Plain Tale. If you ever have any voiceover work, you've heard how wonderful his voice is. Please bear him in mind, gregwillits.com. And he does fantastic different American accents. Well, I'm sure he can do other accents as well as American, but he's just got a wonderful quality of voice.
And not only a great quality voice, but he's a very quality individual. And
absolutely, just the sort of guy you'd want to invest in.
Thanks, Greg.
Trust.
I had no idea until I was listening to your Plain Tale. I went, "Oh, there's Greg."
There you go.
Yeah. And he doesn't live that far from me. I should see you sometime, Greg, if you're listening. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this baby up, and let's talk about
diaper.
Yeah, or something. Yeah. Wait a minute. That means that this is a bunch of crap. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it will be.
Okay.
Shortly.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and point you to our website, airlinepilotguy.com, which is a place where you can learn all kinds of stuff about our show. I'm trying to find our little, here we go. Look at that. There's a graphic of what it looked like back when we were publishing.
Oh my God,
418.
That's more than 100 shows
I know, it was a while ago. But here we have a tab for podcasts and APG on YouTube, APG Crew, Plain Tales, APG Library. Tiffany does that for us. Thank you, Tiffany. Coffee Fund information, the APG store, ways for you to contact us, and the community calendar and more. Even you can search for stuff. Yeah. Yes, I'll mention that, Liz. Thank you. Up there, you see the little magnifying glass. Now, this is only in certain views, like you're looking at this on your laptop or your computer. If you're looking at this on your phone, you may not see that little search function. But if you are looking at in this view, you can click on that search, that magnifying glass, and then if you're looking for a particular topic or a particular episode or news item, you can enter it in and hit search, and it'll take you to all the search results, and you might be able to find what you're looking for that way. So good tool to use if you have access to it. And all right, we are also on social media. And Captain Nick, would you like to tell our
can do
audience
this,
about
yes.
that? Okay.
If you're a Facey bookie and someone cloned my Facebook page the other day and
nice.
started sending out friend requests. So if you get one from me and you're already a friend, then you know it's a dodgy one. Anyway, I've that stopped now because I've changed all my security stuff. Anyway, Facebook, Airline Pilot Guy, all one word is what you need to search for. If you're a Twitter fan, then at APG Crew. And if you're an Instagram person, the same one, APG Crew. You don't need the at. And if you're interested in doing something more personal to the APG, then we have our own Slack account.
I'm interested in personal things. A dating app. Is that right? Are we gonna reveal that today? Well,
I hope not.
I'm thinking maybe I should come up with a dating app, and then I'll be able to find some. Anyway,
I think you have. It's called the APG Show.
Okay, right. That's the dating app for me.
Yeah, well, just keep going to those meetups.
Okay. Let's see if. I have a date with Ken on Tuesday. All right.
Is he
and Brent,
Barbie's friend?
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe that's his wife.
Oh,
you never know.
Be.
But let's try to move off of this and talk about Slack and see if Hillel is available for us to tell us about. Hey, Hillel, Slack? Can you tell us about Slack?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
That's okay. We know it's always going to be the case. And
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
All right, thanks a lot, Hillel. Appreciate it.
Well done, man.
Would you loosen my back again?
No.
What, again?
Why did he say again? That's,
I don't know. How many times have you done that?
More. We'll talk about this later. Okay. And what else to say here? Oh, Liz, come on in on video here. We have to say thank you to Liz for all of the hard work that you do. And I mean, I really mean it. I'm not just saying that to say it. I mean, she is awesome. Does a lot of work behind the scenes.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you so much.
Don't have to say it every week, but I really appreciate it.
Oh, you do? Absolutely.
No, that's part of the contract. I have to say it every week.
I'm renegotiating.
And then I have to pay big bucks if I forget to do it, which I've done on a few occasions. And she never lets me hear the end of it.
That was a great show. Really glad Nick could join us for a while. Nick
Yeah, me
C.
too.
Cool.
And Nick
Not
A.
you, the other one.
Oh, go away.
We're always here.
Right, I'm off.
Oh, no. You've hurt his feelings again. All right. Anyway, don't know when we're going to be doing the show next week, but we'll let you know via the social medias. And until then, have a great weekend.
Wait a minute.
Hang on.
Mike, Dana, and Micah, today's Tiffany's birthday. You better wish her a big happy birthday.
Okay. Tiffany, our librarian, happy birthday to you.
Oh, yeah.
Tiffany.
And,
Happy birthday, Tiffany.
Yes.
Can I have one of your little blue boxes with something for my wife, please? Because it's her birthday soon.
I don't think she has anything to do with that retail.
You sure?
Yeah.
She's
Maybe
in New
she
York
does.
State, but not in New York.
Yeah.
I was hoping for a discount.
Oh, you're going to confuse Nick again,
I know.
Liz, with the
I
whole
know.
New York thing.
Hi, Mohammed. We're just signing off.
Yeah. Well, kind of better late than never, Muhammad.
Just made it under the wire.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're signing off. And we'll hang out here for a few minutes after we stop the broadcast and talk to y'all.
Oh, show title. Talk show titles, yes.
Jeff has to do his sign off.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And until then, wishing, well, okay, so we
Oh,
hope
yeah,
you have
Jeff.
a great we hope you have a great week, a great weekend, and until then, wishing you all clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Tailwinds. Yeah, I've got tailwinds. Bye.
Ta-ta
Winds
for
from your
now.
tail.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Turn off your recorders.
Oh, all right.
All right. Yes,
Because we
ma'am.
don't want any of this nonsense recorded.
Okay. So, Nick, I have 3 possible titles.
Oh, right.
but
Hang on. Let me get piece of paper. Hang on.
I don't know how great they are, but they're the only one I
Oh,
got.
damn it. That was my finger.
Uh-oh.
Trying to write with his finger.
We're going to call him Nine Finger Nick.
Oh, my.
Oh.
Okay. That's fancy.
Right, now I need a pen. Oh, I've got, you know what pen I've got?
What pen
You
you got?
recognize this, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I know that pen. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Very
That's
nice.
a very good pen.
Good one.
Right. It's 557, isn't it?
557. Okay, so here they are. They're not great, but here you go. Bus versus bus, and that was the Airbus
Yeah.
and the crew bus at LAX. So bus versus bus.
Yep.
Okay, next one is no diving. So we had those 2 news things about the planes taking dives. So I'm thinking of, at a swimming pool, they often have a thing about no diving.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
And this last one is ridiculous, but I liked it. Anyway, ice in drinks, not on planes.
You're tickled by that one. Ice and
Ice
drinks,
Not on planes.
not on planes.
We had
we
the
had that.
icing incident there in Norway. And anyway,
Ice in
so ice
drinks.
in drinks, check mark. Ice on planes, X. Anyway, whatever. I told you they weren't great.
Okay.
I was trying.
Not on place. I got you now.
Now that he's written it down, he can see the humor.
Yeah.
Anybody in the chat have anything better? I'm sure you do.
Oh, I forgot to turn the chat back.
Hey, Ragga. Hello, mate.
How's he doing? How's your boy doing?
He's all right. He just I don't like you talking.
No, you got
To people that I can't see.
Yeah, exactly. Freaks
no
me out.
no suggestions there from the chat room unless it's the
Oh, they're useless. Come on.
No kidding.
Main man Mike has usually got a few.
And Mike Kuipers, if he's still there, usually can.
yeah, Mike's
contribute.
usually good at it too.
Tim can usually think up something.
Yeah, his are usually pretty racy. That's
Yeah.
what we like about Tim.
Yeah.
He ought to be in Formula One.
Yeah, nobody's responding. They don't care. They've all gone off to do
They
this.
don't care, do they?
Well, Mike's there. Come on, Mike. We love your suggestions.
I'm here.
Okay. Well, you know who doesn't? Who also doesn't care?
Jingles doesn't care.
Jingles doesn't care. Yeah.
No ideas.
Anyway, glad you
I
got-
like those. The first 2 especially, Liz.
Bus v bus and no
Bus.
diving.
No diving. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No diving.
I try. I'm very trying.
Oh,
You are very trying.
God.
Very, very trying. Mike has got nothing. So, and neither
Nothing.
does Mike Kuipers. So they're useless. So you're
In
gonna
other words, they weren't really paying attention to
No,
what we were
they
talking
don't.
about
No.
today. They were doing their own thing
That's
over there.
right. They were chatting away and arguing and
You mean I could have an Airbus and a Boeing diving into a swimming pool with a big sign saying no diving.
No diving.
How's that?
Yeah.
God, I
like it.
Like it. Sounds good and easy too.
Yeah.
Anyway, have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you when we see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. All the best, everybody. Cheery bye. Gonna give